Well, good evening and welcome to the Monday, June 10th, 2013 Carver School Committee meeting. If you would all rise and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome. With that, we will open up comments from the general public. Are there any this evening? Mr. Ward, would you please come up to the mic? Yes.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Dick Ward, citizen, 20 West Street, where I live.
Welcome.
I thought I'd stop in tonight because we've finished our town meeting. We accepted our budgets. I kind of wanted to focus, bring that up again, and I'm sure it's on your minds, but why not make sure the public is thinking a little about it. Our biggest project in our town is a future school. That should be our priority. It kind of was in my campaign, and folks have supported me on it. The interesting part that I find is that there are parts of your budget that are going to be spent on maintenance and upgrades in the old school. I say that because the Irwin Washburn School and the Governor John Carver School are our targets for either renovating or rebuilding. And and I want to remind the public, I am not a frosting on the cake person, but I consider a school, and a healthy school, a decent school where the kids can enjoy their education is important for us. And so it is important for me to see our school committee bringing the public up to date constantly about the things that you're having to do to those schools to remind them of the importance of the possibility of a new school and how much we need it. And so that was uppermost in my mind, and that's why I showed up tonight. And I was going to ask, I know there's something coming soon, maybe from the Mass School Building Assistance Authority, but I didn't know what the school committee had been thinking, and I didn't know when your next meeting was. And I had a few of those questions that I just didn't want to have a big gap where the public it was out of their mind and they weren't thinking about it. I think it's necessary.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, and usually we won't follow up on that, but just to your point, we've made it a point, thanks to some discussions that we've had with our committee, to try to bring up the process that we're in at each meeting, whether we have information or no information, just to keep everybody posted. So I appreciate the reminder. So thank you.
Good.
We have heard nothing from MSBA. That'll be the next step. They will make some sort of notification to me, and then as soon as I know, I will tell everyone. I was led to believe it might be a rolling admissions into the invitation this time versus waiting till their July board meeting. But now it looks like they may be waiting for their July board meeting. They have a new director, and Pat's talked to him several times and at different MASBA meetings. So we do keep putting Carver's. He texts me every time he goes to one of these meetings. I'm sitting next to John McCarthy again.
What would a rolling acceptance or whatever mean?
Well, instead of waiting to their board meeting and just saying we will invite non-districts into feasibility, they would take the neediest ones first and notify them. But I check every day on the MSBA website, and so far no one's been notified. So
I wanted to be gentle about this tonight, folks. I wasn't trying to target anybody.
Oh, not at all, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
May I say something? Or is that allowed?
Briefly. Yes.
I'll be very brief. I just want to thank you, Mr. Ward. And I check that Massachusetts School Building Authority website frequently, and every week there are new schools being built around the state of Massachusetts. Today, there was a ribbon-cutting ceremony for an elementary school in Bill Ricca, $15.8 million the Massachusetts School Building Authority gave to the town of Bill Ricca to do that. And I'll tell you, there's elementary schools, high schools, middle schools being built continuously throughout Massachusetts. And I know we've been trying to do this since 2005 when the school was in dire need back then. So we got to keep it on the forefront. You're absolutely right. Thanks, Mr. Ward. Thank you,
Thank you.
Chairman.
Thank you. At this time, any other comments from the general public? Mrs. Maestas, yes, come on up.
Good evening. I just wanted to take this moment to introduce to you all our new associate principal. Her name is Amy Furtado. She comes to us from the New Bedford Public School System with 14 years of experience in a grade 4 classroom. And Amy Furtado's first day of school with the elementary will be in July. She is starting as of July 1. So I just wanted to welcome her and introduce her to everyone here this evening.
Great.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Would you like to say anything?
I was going to say, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, no, I'll just...
All right. We'll let you off the hook this time.
Okay, sounds good.
At this time, any other comments from the general public? Seeing none, we'll move on to comments from the EAPC. Donna?
Good evening, everyone. I'm
Good evening.
Donna Ramsey, president of the EAPC, and I'm very happy to announce that last month, right after our last committee meeting, the teachers ratified the new evaluation process. So we're a go for the fall. We have some evaluation training happening during the summer, and I'd like to thank the management for inviting me to be part of that process at the same time. And I do have to say that it really was a collaborative effort. And at this particular time, I'd also like to introduce a new member of our board, is Jackie Perkins. She is going to be the new vice president for Carver, replacing Linda Haju, but not really, because we're not going to let Linda go that easily. So I'd like to welcome her aboard. And I noticed on the agenda that the next meeting isn't until August 12th. So, and I know that the teachers right now in the classrooms can't think like that, because they're thinking about how do we end this year, how do we get ready for next year. So it's a very, very difficult time for them, but an exciting time. So I'd like to thank them for a fabulous job. And the next time that you see us, everybody should be nice and relaxed and thinking about next year. So thank you very much.
Well, and thank you, Donna. With that, do we have an update from the Student Advisory Council or Captain's Council? I do see some representatives here tonight. Come on up, guys.
Sit down and swap. Hello. So I'm going to start us off by telling you that we recently had registration for the new student council with 32 members who signed up, which is the best that we've had in 3 years, which is really great. A lot of underclassmen showing interest, which is really good. We also, at our first meeting, had our elections for our new executive board. And I'm just going to introduce them. They're not here, obviously, but I'm just going to let you know their names. The new executive board president is Carrie Walsh. I am reelected as the vice president for executive board. Secretary is Gigi Tracy, who is a sophomore, which is really great. Gianna Daddario is our publicity coordinator. We have 2 spirit coordinators, Jessica Ferguson and Brittany McCarran, and Samantha Gouvermont is our photojournalist. So
Great. Well, congratulations to all those elected officials.
All right, so just a couple updates on what we've done as the year's coming to a close. We held the annual fire, EMT, and police dinner for our appreciation for all their duties and all that they do for this town. There was 26 people who attended from the departments and whatnot. That was on April 30th. That was a good turnout. We had a lot of fun. We also held the Salvation Army clothes drive in the high school. That was May 6th to the 17th, and there was 21 trash bags of clothing that was collected, which is a great turnout, and we'll probably do that one next year as well. And then this summer, our council is volunteering at the Old Home Day in July and hosting a car wash on August 3rd, as well as the firefighter clam bake on June 23rd, which are already planning for, and we'll, they usually do the cans, like they give us the cans so that we can send them through the recycling, and then they let us keep the profits for that, which is great. So we're all looking forward to that a lot with our new huge council. I'm excited, so thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you both. With that, we will move on to the approval of the minutes. So we have the May 13th, 2013 regular session minutes.
I will make a motion to approve the May 13th regular session minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? And a chance to look them over? Great. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. That will move on to the May 13th, 2013 executive session minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the executive session minutes from May 13th.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the executive session minutes?
I was not present for that, so I won't vote.
I was not present either.
Sure, we've got that. So we need absent. We can add that to minutes. James and Gina. All right. With that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those abstaining?
Aye.
James and Gina? We'll get that in there. And then moving on to the special session minutes that were held last week on June 3rd.
Did we need to list that Gina was absent? I didn't notice. I don't know if that's a formality we need to take care of or not.
We can add it in there as well, like we did with the executive session
Yeah.
minutes. Yep.
Okay. So I would just say if we modify it, just to note that, you know, where we have at present,
absent,
just put
yep.
absent Gina.
Mhm.
And then I would make a motion to approve them as amended.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second that.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on those? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And one abstain?
Abstain.
And Anne Marie. All right, moving on to communications.
First, you have a list from Old Colony of our accepted students, and it's quite a long list this year, so we can congratulate these students for their acceptance to Old Colony Vocational School. It's also the reason why you see on our enrollment from year to year, from 8th to 9th grade, we lose 25 to 30 students, but we don't really lose them. They just go to Old Colony. Then Carver's been a proud participant in the PCC Advanced Studies Project Contemporary Competitiveness Program at Stonehills College. And this year from Carver, we have, well, I'm not going to get it right because they cut their names up, but I'll try. Morgan Brown, I think it's Jillian Hurley, is that right? Because I don't have the whole first name. And Jillian Hurley, Kimberly Jagers, Scott Parzali, Sophie Perkins, Emily Rubin, and Madeline Wright. So we had 7 students accepted, and on your agendas it tells you what programs they're going to be in.
Yeah, I want to take that warm cookies one.
Sounds good to me. And then last, this is an ongoing project, and our Carver Technology Plan, we have to update it every year, and every 5 years we have to do a major update. So our plan has been accepted by the Department of Education, and it's located on our website. So
Great work to all involved on that, and it's, I'm sure, an ongoing process.
yes, mainly Meredith and her predecessor Sherry worked on this plan, so,
Great.
and the Technology Committee, of course.
That will move on to the reports from the superintendent.
So first, under instructional leadership, we have our elementary and middle high school improvement plan. So Ruby, I have you first.
Good evening. So we have lots of information for you this evening. Everyone has a school improvement plan summary from the Carver Elementary School. Okay, so before I delve into the summary, I just wanted to just give you a little bit of background with regard to our school improvement plan. It is a long-term plan. It's a plan that we review annually. The Director of Literacy, the Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology, and our entire administrative alt team reviews this plan. We review this also with our school council. One of the big pieces that in thinking about the school improvement plan and moving forward, it's a pivotal year for us because of the new educator evaluation system. So the school improvement plan is an instrument that helps, that's going to guide all the teachers, all of the staff, every single one of us as we develop our goals for the new teacher evaluation system. And it aligns directly with our district improvement plan. So this document, as a finalized document going forward, it's going to keep us all in the same direction. It's going to help ensure that we're all headed for the same results. So what you're going to hear tonight and see as you're reading this document, it's grounded in a lot of data. And so that's just, you're just going to hear that over and over again. So it's not observational information. It's not anecdotal information. It's actually what we're doing and what we're looking at. So we know, at the elementary school, we have a lot of things that we're working on that we're trying to do on a day-to-day basis. But what we want to tell you tonight and show you is this is what we know we have to spend the majority of our time on in order for us to get the results we need. So this is what we're working on, and this is how we plan to do it. Now, I'm not going to go through everything because, as I mentioned, there's a lot of data and there's a lot of information. But I'm going to highlight, the goals and the action steps and some of the anticipated outcomes as we move forward. So on the first page, promotes the learning growth of all students and the success of all staff by creating a shared vision that makes powerful teaching and learning the central focus of educating children. So when you look at the action steps on the left, this is what we're going to do. We're going to ensure that all students receive prescriptive instruction based on diagnostic data. We're going to strengthen our tiered model of delivery. And we've had a tiered model for several years, but what we're doing each year is we're adjusting and we're tweaking as we've continued to gather data and as we have identified areas of weakness and areas that we need to strengthen. We will facilitate grade level data meetings in order to review student data for our intervention program. We will improve the mathematics instruction for all students through the continued use of our research-based math program and by utilizing assessment data for decision making. We're going to continue to create a consistent knowledge base and a common language among teachers that's grounded in literacy, scientific-based literacy research, including brain-based studies and language essentials for teachers. So a lot of this is professional development as well. Conduct professional learning communities to strengthen the implementation of our key initiatives and build a team approach to delivering our instruction. We will align and integrate the frameworks with the Common Core state standards and strengthen the implementation of the K through 5 core reading. And then on the right, what you see, these are our anticipated outcomes. And further to the right, who is implementing this? This is basically, this is all of us. And then when you look on the bottom under rationale and strategies, this gets to sort of the nitty-gritty of what exactly are we going to do.
A lot.
Yes, and so, as I had mentioned earlier, that this is grounded in a lot of data. It's a very meaty report. There's a lot of information about our plan, what we do, what we've been doing, and what we know we have to continue to do, tweak, adjust. So if you go on to the next goal under management and operations, that goal refers to promoting the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff by ensuring a safe, efficient, and effective learning environment, using resources to implement the curriculum, the staffing, and scheduling. So what we're looking at here, this goal is centered around positive behavior intervention and support. And it's a program that we've been working on rolling out in the last year and a half. What we're looking at is establishing common, clear, and concise behavior and realistic behavioral expectations that will be determined and implemented by the entire staff. And the anticipated outcome is to increase student engagement in learning time. Because we know if students if they are demonstrating positive behavioral expectations, we know that their time on task is going to be increased. So as we go down, increase data-based decision-making on behavior and academic instruction and reinforce across all school settings. So this is a whole entire school-wide initiative that we are working on, and our positive behavior intervention support team is currently a group of about 10 faculty that are working intensely on developing PBIS, and will be working to train the remainder of the faculty at Carver Elementary. So what they're going to do is work on explicitly teaching behavioral expectations to all students school-wide. And they will be reviewing and supporting students' successful demonstration of expected positive behaviors through reteaching and prompting. So again, the PBIS model is a three-tiered model, as our reading intervention model is. It's a three-tiered model as well. So we know that there's a certain percentage of students that we can teach strategies, and they can learn them. We also know that you have to go to the next level of instruction for some students, and that could be small group instruction around behavior expectations. And then we know that sometimes there's a certain population that, again, you have to give them another dose of instruction. And so this piece here will be focused on positive behavioral expectations. So if you turn to the page 3, using the PBIS model, staff will develop increased awareness and recognition of positive expected behaviors throughout the school day, including methods using group and individual behavior management strategies. So our team currently has developed lesson plans for what is expected behavior on the school bus, what is expected behavior in the hallway, what is expected behavior in the lunchroom, recess, classroom, the entire school, and with the goal being to provide direct instruction so that everyone knows what is expected, and the entire faculty and staff helps to support this initiative. So they will work together to inform families and community regarding the PBIS initiative, again with the goal being to decrease the number of behavioral incidents, bullying incidents, and the other piece would be to strengthen the homeschool expectations for positive behaviors. We plan on having informational nights for parents so that we can explain this this philosophy and this system, and work together to build a more positive school community. And right under the boxes there, you'll see the rationale and strategies. what our plan is for this next year. I mentioned some of that. And then if you go on to family and community goal number 3, what we're looking at is promoting the learning and growth of all students and the success of all staff through effective partnerships with families, community organizations, and other stakeholders that support the mission of the school and district. So again, what we're going to do here is increase our participation from the community in school-related literacy, math, and PBIS activities, with the outcomes being increase school and family communication about the academic and behavioral expectations for success, increase literacy in the community, summer reading at home, improve family awareness of incoming kindergarten readiness and the parents' role in school, as well as literacy development. And the last anticipated outcome in that section there, to increase young families' awareness of the importance of developing pre-literacy skills from birth. And so just some of the rationale and strategies continue to establish parent-community programs to inform and inspire literacy. This year we had a preschool pajama party that was quite successful, that we had over 60 children participating, many parents, and a wonderful presenter who talked about literacy, early literacy, and provided resources for parents. We'll continue to provide our summer reading initiative this summer. It's the second annual summer book bingo. We will continue to involve local businesses in incentives for our Read Across America initiative. And we've had a very successful Community Readers Day. We'll continue to reach out to the community. And we also want to implement what we are terming the Books for Babies Newborn Literacy Initiative, where we will work with the town hall, and every time a baby is born in the town of Carver, if they can let our literacy director know about that, we will send them a gift from the Carver Elementary School, and the gift will be the gift of a book to welcome the child and welcome the family. So just some ideas to, again, focus on the goal of increasing participation from the community and working together. And then the last area that we are going to work on, and I didn't mean it that way, I mean, we're constantly working on many other things. This is just a piece of the pie, but promotes success for all students by nurturing and sustaining a school culture of reflective practice, high expectations, and continuous learning for staff. Currently, we are working on improving our full-day kindergarten program using the National Association for the Education of Young Children standards, and implement the Massachusetts Kindergarten Entry Assessment using Teaching Strategies Gold, with the anticipated outcomes to maintain high standards for a full-day kindergarten and improve the quality for learning. And the next bullet there, provide developmentally appropriate differentiated instruction opportunities for students. And when you look at the rationale and the strategies on the bottom, a lot of this is really working with our teachers in professional development, training. We have also worked this year on our teams. We've moved from grade level teams to professional learning communities, and our professional learning communities meet regularly after school. They're grade level teams who meet together to talk about student data, talk about what we expect our students to learn, how we expect them to do it, and what we're going to do when they aren't learning. So we're working very closely with all of our grade level teams. We have identified teachers at every grade level who are lead teachers, who are working closely with administrators to help us to implement the big picture plan. So it's sort of a tiered approach. Again, we talked about tiers. So again, a tiered approach with meeting our goals. All right, so I know that this is a lot of information. I just went over it just briefly. What I also wanted to share with you is you have a summary, but the document is actually, this is sort of what it looks like. And it's designed so that the teachers are able to extrapolate information moving forward as they develop their own student learning goals and professional learning goals for the new teacher evaluation. Any questions, any comments?
Thank you, Ruby. Any discussion from the school committee for Mrs. Maestas? Anyone? Barry, you want to start?
Yes, sir. I don't want to go first. Anybody else?
Go ahead. You're elected, Barry.
Okay, well, I'm always fascinated by that behavioral piece. So, as an individual family, we have high expectations, but I'm curious, what type of support do you get from parents as far as behavior during the day? Because I know, all of us growing up, if you were in a room that was well-behaved, you did better in school, but little distractions here and there, it was tougher. Do the parents kind of support that?
I have to say that since I have started as the elementary school principal, actually as an assistant, I have had a tremendous amount of support from the parents. When I pick up the phone and I call parents and I talk to them, they will ask me, what do you recommend? What do you suggest? What do you want me to do? And if they don't, I'll be ready with some advice as to what I need them to do. So I really feel like we have a partnership already, and I have great respect for the parents. I feel like they have great respect for us as well and what we're doing. So I do have to say that, when we do meet with some challenges, it's really about educating the parents and just helping them understand, developmental behavior and how we can go about working together. Because when you hear about your child having difficulty, it can be sort of scary, or you can become a little bit scared because you don't want your child to be demonstrating challenging behaviors. So really, the way I see it, fear, underneath fear, it's just try to help educate people.
Great, thank you.
So I feel like we have a lot of support.
That was actually the topic I wanted to touch on, but I was trying to figure out if it was just a hot button issue for me or how I wanted to present this. I'm fortunate in that I haven't had you guys call me for any major behavior issues with either of my children, but I know that my children come home very challenged trying to focus in class with certain behavior issues going on. And I wonder, what percentage do we as a town of Carver have compared to other towns? Do you talk to other administrators, and are we a little exorbitant in our amount of behavior issues because of our population or demographic, or is it kind of the same across the board for everybody? Because I know that some of the parents I talk to say, yeah, we don't remember this stuff being tolerated when we were kids. It seems so different now. And of course, I feel really old saying that. But so I'm just curious, what do we have for data as to how we compare to other districts throughout the state?
That's a good question. I haven't looked really closely at other data throughout the state, but I can tell you that, this whole process is really a team process, working together with families, providing them with more education, helping them to understand, yes, how to deal with challenging behaviors, and also when the challenging behaviors are not your own. So I think a big piece, again, goes back to just educating each other, helping, having conversations of, giving parents resources, and parents then in turn being able to give their children resources. So I know I didn't really answer your question, but I can't tell you that in our school that it's significant. We have sometimes a good stretch of time where things are going quite well, and there are some minor infractions that we have to deal with. What happens sometimes is when you have, because of the bullying laws, the bullying regulations, what happens sometimes is, you have to be thorough in your investigation. And what that does is it just takes a certain amount of time, where if we're investigating a bullying situation, it can take 3 to 4 days to be thorough. You know.
I can speak to the fact that in all schools across the country, there are more challenging behaviors because we are now in a very inclusive environment. We take all children, and when I went to school, that was not the case. And I think Carver's very proud to be able to educate all of their children and to work with parents and families. And we got into the PBIS, the Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, not because we thought we had some particular problem, because we thought it was a good way to partner with parents in the community and to try to provide the best, safest environment for our children. And you know, and it's one of the key roles of the associate and assistant principals is to work with children on these issues. And we have 2 very large schools, and we're very lucky to have very talented people to work with them. And some of them, of course, end up with the principal, but it's in guidance or school adjustment counselors. But I don't think we represent a different demographic, but just more of what's the norm today.
I'd kind of reiterate that. I think the atmosphere itself is completely different too. When you went into a classroom, you learned what the teacher taught, and that was what everybody learned. Whereas now it's much more differentiated, and there's a lot more involved in that process, so it's not the same. I think PBIS is an excellent initiative for you to be working, moving forward with. And from my perspective, this shows a lot of hard work and cooperation on the staff to do that. I think I'd request that maybe just making sure that that parent component of it and keeping in contact so that they understand it also, so that language becomes more common, which I know is part of it, but I think that that should really be a big part of it, because it looks like your staff has a good grasp on it and is really seems to be accepting it. And it is a great initiative, but I think making sure that parents are on that same page as much as possible will really help move that forward.
Absolutely, I agree. So we will partner with the PTO to couple meetings with information nights as well. And you know, you do it in the fall, and then you do it again in the winter, and you may need to do it again in the spring. But I agree.
It looks great. I think it shows great work.
Definitely. Anything? Well, and I think just to build on that specific topic, like you said, it's challenging for parents because it's hard to admit. As parents, we may feel like we failed if our child is having these challenging behaviors, and it's that stigma, like you said, and in being able to work with the district and the staff there to be able to work with parents, and as James shared, just that communication piece and the outreach will help get more parents involved, rather than sometimes it's easier if you're intimidated about something just to let it go, and unfortunately children suffer for that. So it sounds like we're on the right track with this, and it's going to be good to see. Hopefully we can get more engagement from parents, because it is a team effort, and it needs to be a team effort, and the district is making those efforts, and hopefully we'll have a strong partnership moving forward with that.
I agree. We have had some excellent conversations with parents, some very rich discussions where we've sat down face to face. We've discussed some very difficult topics, but you know what? In the end, it was for the better, because things turned around. So I have to say, I do thank the parents, and I appreciate them listening to us and taking our advice, and when it's difficult to take our advice, I appreciate them just trying to take the first step. So, thank you.
Thank you. With that,
Thank you, Ruby.
no other questions, so thank you, Ruby.
Scott.
Scott, coming up.
Good evening, everyone. How's it going this evening? So I'd like to start by just recognizing the members of our school council. The school council is the primary body that builds the school improvement plan. So this year we had parents, Kristen Flood, Dawn Podowski, and Joanne Pushkar. We had 3 students, Jared Ouellette, who's a sophomore, Paul Kittredge, who's an 8th grader, and Dana Ferrante, who just graduated as our valedictorian a week ago. So, and we had 4 teachers, Mike Facolosi, Pam Howell, Beth Goodwin, and Brian Johnson. And the basis of what's in our school improvement plan, obviously it aligns with the district goals. And in terms of the setup of the documents you see in front of you, it's very similar to Ruby's setup because it all aligns with the district plan. But in terms of the themes that are represented within the report, it really comes from this report, which is our NEAS self-study. So I brought it along as a prompt. And that really, reading through the entire NEAS report, you see some themes, and hopefully the school improvement plan addresses most of those themes. Those themes are increasing collaboration for teachers. That's a huge theme in the NEAS report, that we have to give more opportunities during the school day for teachers to talk about teaching. Another theme in the report is increasing both access to technology by our staff and our staff's use of technology. So you're going to see a goal in the plan around that idea. One of the themes of the report is to continue our building on school pride. So in the report, they'll talk about that there was a lot of school pride evidenced while they were there for the evaluation, but we should keep moving forward with those things. Then specifically goes back to PBIS. So part of our school pride initiative revolves around a PBIS initiative at the middle high school. Another theme that you'll see come out of the report is heterogeneous grouping and having high expectations for all students. And ultimately, from the NEAS perspective, having heterogeneously grouped class or unleveled classes establishes high expectations for all students. And over the past month or so, we've been interviewing. And as part of my introduction for all our interviews, I always say, we want teachers who are going to establish high expectations for our students, because our students will rise to them. They'll rise to the expectations of the teacher in the classroom. And that's our ultimate and primary goal, is to hire people who are going to come in and establish high expectations. Now, structurally, there's a way you can do that as well. And you can do that structurally through the development, at least NEAS would argue, you can do that structurally through increasing the number of heterogeneously grouped courses and having fewer leveled courses. And so we're going to talk about that because that's one of the goals within the plan as well. And then the final theme you'll see come out of the NEAS report, and this is not addressed in the plan, but we have a different group that's looking at it, is us as a school reporting out on students' progress on achieving our school-wide expectations. So we've established 21st century learning expectations. There's 5 of them. And one of the charges of NEAS is to report out to parents students' progress on achieving those expectations. We have a NEAS follow-up committee that's specifically working on that piece of it. In retrospect, I look back and say it probably should be in the school improvement plan because there's nothing here that ties to that global theme where the rest of the plans we go through it's going to come back to one of those themes of collaboration, heterogeneous grouping, school pride, technology. But the reporting out process is not necessarily within the school improvement plan, but we do have a group within the school who's working on that with the plan that not next year but the year after we would have a formal way to report to parents students' progress on achieving the school's learning expectations. So that's kind of an overview of where the plan came from, and then we'll specifically look at some of the specific action steps to support those global themes. And the first one is evaluate the increase in the number of heterogeneous courses offered in English department and consider additional heterogeneous offerings. So next year, 11th and 12th grade English we're going to be doing differently at the high school. It's going to be elective-based, and students were given a range of electives in which they can choose from. Those electives are all going to be heterogeneously grouped. There'll be an honors option, so students can take an honors option within the heterogeneously grouped classroom. But really, all 11th and 12th grade classes will be together. And it actually, there's 2 things there. 1, it's heterogeneous grouping. 2, it's going to give our students a lot more choice. And so we're kind of excited about that next year. But we're going to have to evaluate how successful that is and whether it's achieving our school-wide goals in terms of having some more heterogeneous grouping. So all 11th and 12th graders are required to take 1 of 2 electives, which are composition electives. And then there's going to be some choices in terms of they're just interested in their specific area of interest. They could take poetry, they can take memoir, they can take literature and film, they can take literature and psychology. So those are just some of the electives that are going to be offered. So it's going to be a different approach to English at the high school level for juniors and seniors. And next year is our first year doing it. Jackie's going to play a huge role in that because she's going to teach all those electives. Well, not all of them. That would be impressive if she taught them all.
Good for you, Jackie.
Well, you're going to do all composition and AP. But you're going to have all the 11th and 12th graders, and you have them all heterogeneously grouped. So that's really goes back to the NEAS goal in terms of establish. So that's one way this year which we're following that pattern of creating more heterogeneously grouped courses. And then we're going to take a look at that and say, do we expand to another level? The other place we've talked about doing it, and we'll kind of make an evaluation next year, is do all the 9th grade history courses become heterogeneously grouped without levels, without an all honors college prep distinction. So that's the next area we're looking at doing that. I'm not saying we're going to, we're just going to evaluate that next year and make that decision as we go forward. So that's our first action step. The second one is, and this is really a big one, which you'll hear a lot more about next year, is we're going to investigate scheduling models to determine if another model would best meet the needs of our students. This goes back to the collaboration piece. So we've developed a committee that's going to evaluate the middle high school schedule 6 through 12. That committee is going to make some recommendations in the fall to the staff about possibly changing our schedule. That change in schedule will be based upon developing collaboration time during the school day for teachers. So right now, beyond the 6th grade teams, so right now the 6th graders in teams and they have formal collaboration time as part of their schedule. Teachers in grades 7 through 12 do not. Now, there's a lot of informal collaboration that goes on. So there's a lot of teachers talking to each other. There's a lot of, whether it's after school, whether it's they just happen to have the same prep period, because it just happens that they fall and have the same prep period. But it's not designed for that purpose. So we'd be investigating schedules in which we'd be able to design during the school day where teachers at all grade levels, 6 through 12, would have the opportunity to collaborate both with other members of their department and then possibly interdisciplinary. There are some schedules out there. There's some schools we're going to go visit over the summer, and we're going to look at their schedules to see how they do it, and then we're going to make a proposal to the faculty, and then we're going to make a proposal to the school committee possibly to look at having a new schedule for the 2014-2015 school year. And that whole schedule would be based upon increasing collaboration time for teachers. Just so people don't get too concerned, the models that we're looking at right now are not necessarily a wholesale change. It's not making a huge shift. Like currently, we do not have a block schedule. Block schedules are a popular scheduling model amongst high schools. We're not considering a block schedule. We don't think that would be beneficial for our middle school students, so that's not a schedule we would look at. So I think the changes in schedule we're looking at will probably still maintain the 58-minute teaching period. It's just going to be the organization of that period that will be different, that will allow for more collaboration time for our teachers. I don't want anybody walking away thinking we're looking at totally throwing out what we have and creating a whole new model. But we'll see as we go into next year. So that's one of the big parts of our school improvement plan. The next one, which ties into it, is evaluating to plan and expand our current advisory program. So right now we have an advisory program for students in 9th and 10th grade. NEASC is actually requiring that for the 2014-2015 school year that you have an advisory program for all students in your building, which means we'd have to have an advisory program for students in grades 6 through 12. That is going to be part of our scheduling model. So as we look at new schedules, we're going to look at a scheduling model that incorporates advisory for all students. There are schedules out there that do that as well, and we're going to be going off and visiting some schools to do that. The goal of the advisory program is that every student in the building would have an adult that is not a guidance counselor, who they would be able to turn to for additional supports. The concept being that the connected student is the stronger student, and that the more adults in the building that a student can be connected to, the more successful they'll be in the building. And in the big picture, I agree with that. I think the student who's more connected in athletics, or the student who's more connected to as many adults as possible, if they're tied into something, I think they'll be more successful students. So the concept of the advisory is maybe they have an adult advisor who they would have never made any connection with. It's another adult. It's another someone else that they can have that bond with. And the goal is, why would you only do that for 9th and 10th graders? Right, currently we have a building and we only do it for 9th and 10th graders. So why would we not expand it for all students 6 through 12? Originally, when we first created our advisory program, the middle school and the high school was still separate. It made some sense at that time to do 9th and 10th grade as students transitioned into the high school, even though we've always been one facility. But now that we're all one building under one principal, I think it does make sense to us to move towards a 6-12 advisory. So that's also going to be a huge piece we're going to be looking at. next year. But that goes in with the, looking at the scheduling models. The next goal we have, it goes towards family and community engagement, and it ties in the PBIS model, and it's really about developing events, activities, and organizations that encourage school pride and unity. There's the spotlight now, unity, and among students, faculty, and families. We put this in a global perspective, but we've really been looking at what can we do to just increase school pride. And there's a lot of things that fall under here. A lot of things we've done this year, a lot of things we're planning for next year. So for example, things that we did do this year, we did do a new awards assembly for students in grades 9 through 12 at the halfway point. Middle school 6 through 8 has the Crusader Pride every term, and what a great job Christine does with that. And it's an outstanding representation of school pride. If you went to the last one, third term, the students were just spontaneously clapping and singing for a good portion of for a good period of time. It was but it was all just energy, positive energy, and that's the type of energy we want to see. So we added that assembly for the high school 9 through 12 to try to increase school pride. I don't know if you've noticed, as you enter the foyer of the high school, we did like kind of a wall of fame of student leaders, and we've taken pictures of all the student leaders, and they're posted up in on a big frame in the foyer of the school. So that was new this year. We've developed a letter jacket. Now, the letter jacket's in its infancy, so we want to build the letter jacket next year. So one of the things under here is to do a better job of making parents and students aware of the letter jacket, that it exists, developing the criteria of how you earn a letter jacket. And the concept is you could earn a letter jacket for participating in any extracurricular activity. It doesn't have to just be sports. I think people, when they think of letter jacket, they think sports, but it doesn't have to be sports. It can be for participating in anything. And then we're going to establish criteria for how the students can earn the letter jacket, publicize to parents and families, and then next year hopefully sell some letter jackets. This year we developed the jacket. It hangs in the foyer so students can see it, but we haven't taken that next step. And next year, as part of this Developing School Pride, we'll take that next step. We've done a lot of PBIS initiatives. We've also developed the lesson plans for specific behaviors. But in terms of the PBIS piece, we've done some more specific initiatives. So for example, this year we did Carver Pride bracelets, and each teacher was given 5 Carver Pride bracelets, which they could give to students for any reason that they chose. If they felt the student was exhibiting positive behaviors, they could give those bracelets out. And then along the way, we encouraged teachers to give incentives for students wearing their bracelet. Okay, everyone who's wearing their bracelet, they get a homework pass. We try to do some school-wide ones. So one afternoon, we said everyone who has their bracelet, we ordered Hoodsie ice creams. Meredith seems to come over whenever we're doing these events. I don't say it for that reason. I'll just say I'm usually meeting with Meredith and say I have to go because we're doing ice cream. And
I thought Carver is such a great place to be.
So that day, we, in the last 5 minutes of school, gave over 350 students Hoodsie ice cream because they were wearing their Carver Pride bracelets. So we've been doing those incentives around PBIS. And I know later on the agenda this evening, I think the grant is on the agenda for a grant that Liz has put in for to help fund some of these programs. Because if you're going to start doing things like the bracelets and those types of incentives, there does need to be some funding to support those types of programs. So we want, this is, my goals are, looking at Ruby's plan versus my plan, I see my goals are much more global, and I don't mean that in a negative way. So Ruby's is much more specific and detailed. So there's a lot of things that follow this umbrella of develop events, activities, and organizations that encourage school pride and unity among students, faculty, and families. But ultimately, that's what we're trying to do, and we can attack that in many different ways. And we have done that in many different ways this year, and we're going to continue to do that into next year. So I have 2 goals left, and then I'll open it up for questions. Next one is continue to train teachers on a new evaluation system, which will be implemented during the 2013-2014 school year. A large portion of our professional development time this year was dedicated towards, and I shouldn't say just teachers, all of us, and teachers and administrators, staff, everyone working in the school, on how this system is going to work. So we did several training modules, I believe 4 in total, might have been 5, definitely 4 in total. Which was really focused on what's this going to look like. So we've done a lot of theory this year, and next year we're going to do a lot of practical application of the new teacher evaluation system. And I think we're going to have to spend some time during the year to reassess what we've done and how we implemented the system and how successful is it being. So I felt like it needed to stay in the school improvement plan. I think we've set a lot of the groundwork for it this year current, but I think going into next year, there's still going to be a lot of work for us all to do at the district level and at the school level in transitioning into this new evaluation system. So I felt it needed to stay in the plan. And then the final one, and this one is investigating and developing ways to increase the utilization of technology by teachers and access to technology by students. Some of this is going to fall out of the control of the school, of Carver Middle High School, specifically the access issue. Right now we do have some infrastructure problems in terms of internet capabilities within the buildings. Though I believe we're in better shape than the elementary school, which might be a low standard.
Well, the positive being after our recent town meeting, there's some support coming.
Right, and so I believe town meeting has that support's on its way. But I think we really need to look at increasing the infrastructure. We need to look at increasing students' access to technology, and I think some of that support's on its way as well. And then working with students once they have that technology of how we're going to use it and how our teachers going to use it in the classroom. So we're going to have to take some professional development time next year to really talk about once we have some of those technologies in place, how are we going to use them in the classroom? And we're investigating this in a lot of ways, whether it's from iPads to increasing internet access for students to even using platforms like Edmodo or different sites, blogging sites in which they're interactive. And I think there's a whole group of English teachers right now who are using this site called Edmodo, which is really an interactive platform for teachers and students to post work, to post assignments, to reflect on work, to blog about it, to discuss it, to talk, to give reflections. And some of the history teachers want to go in that direction. So I think we have to start looking at all of our teachers saying how we're using these different platforms out there that are available to us so that we can work more collaboratively in having students' work be the best that it can be. So that's kind of my summary of the school improvement plan, and I will take any questions that you have.
To the committee. Anyone?
I
James?
actually have two, Scott, if you don't mind. They're kind of connected in a way. And the first one, and I agree with both of them. I think they seem like great. The first one was on the heterogeneous classrooms and English. I'm sure they're part of this, but how does that work with the teachers? How do they feel about that? Is there any kind of feedback from them directly on whether great idea, don't know kind of thing?
In terms of changing how the high school English classes were offered this year, that was generated by the English department and the department chair. It's their proposal.
Excellent.
So they wanted to just give students more choice. I don't know if it was as strong in terms of the heterogeneous piece. I think their focus was more giving student choice. Right now in the 11th grade we offer a British literature course, and there was a general sense that course had become stale in content for both students and teachers, and they began to look at the relevance of that course in terms of the literature they would need to know, background, preparation for college, and the feeling was that maybe we need to give students a wider choice, because that choice and a focus on area of interest might produce more active student participation in all classes. So I don't know if the focus was as much along the idea of there being heterogeneous grouped, but the proposal said heterogeneous group classes with an honors option. So a student who's in a composition course or a memoir course or a literature and psychology course can take the honors option within that course. And the English teachers are going to describe what additional work they have to do to earn the honors piece. But in terms of, otherwise the students will be grouped together. So I guess the short answer to your question is the proposal came from the teachers.
That was a good answer, actually. I appreciate that. Just the other one, real quick, was on the sort of in the same context, on the advisory program. Again, it seems like a really great idea, but that also seems like you're talking about a lot of students considered to the amount of staff that you have.
To have a school-wide advisory program, really, pretty much every adult in the building would have to be involved. So it would include the guidance counselors. It would include a lot of staff. It would probably include the nurse. It's really going to talk about everyone. this, from the NEAS perspective, this is one of the most contentious recommendations they make, and they're not even really making a recommendation. They're saying if you do not have an advisory program school-wide in 2014-15, you have to report it to us. Now, what does that mean when we report it to them? I'm not really sure, but if we don't have that program in place, I have to notify them in writing that it doesn't exist. And I think in terms of the 6 through 12 advisory may not have the same support of the entire staff that the proposal of the English department did in terms of changing our electives for 11th and 12th grade.
Right.
And also, I would say the advisory programs may not have the same support even statewide from schools that have running them. So some people, it's one of those things, it's one of the NEAS things that people sometimes question the most. We're a small school, and I think there's a lot of personal connections that are built within our school. And I think someone can make an argument that there's very few students who feel isolated. I'm not saying there aren't any, but there's a lot of opportunities. We're a small school, we really get to know everyone. People don't get lost in the shuffle a little bit. And I think that's kind of the big picture concept of the advisory program, is in larger schools to not have someone just kind of fade into the school and not be connected, which is because I believe wholeheartedly that the connected student is the more successful student. So again, I don't know if that answers your question, but I would say it's not the same level of support. And it's going to take the entire staff. So to do this program, everyone's going to have to be an advisor.
Well, I guess that was kind of my concern in a way. And again, I agree. I think it's in the right direction, a great initiative. But if you have a lot of people who are sort of, for lack of a better word, being forced to be involved in this, and you're sending students to come to them for advice or for counsel, and they're not really trained in how to respond to
And
certain
how the
things.
advisory program would work, per se, is that it would be a scheduled part of the day. We'd have to establish some curriculum around the expectations of the advisory meeting periods. And then we'd also have to instruct our staff in terms of if they brought an issue to you that you were uncomfortable with, like anything now. If a student goes to a teacher and the teacher's uncomfortable dealing with that subject, that teacher should immediately refer that student to guidance, to the administration, to make sure that the students really gain the appropriate supports. The goal isn't that this person's going to replace the school adjustment counselor or the guidance counselors or Mr. Evans or Ms. Cabral. It's just another catch.
Another outreach.
And then hopefully that person will make the appropriate referral to the people who might more directly deal with that and have the training to deal with it.
Thank you.
Any others?
I think it was excellent. And it goes back to the old saying, it really does take a village to raise a child, so I think it's excellent. I think both Ruby and Scott have done outstanding jobs with really reaching out and providing more than enough information for the community. Excellent.
Thank you, Gina.
And these together will make up our district improvement plan with the additions of the goals and objectives that the specific administrators want to stretch their own professional leadership with. So we will meld this all together, and you will see it either in August or September for our district improvement plan.
Great. Barry?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on the heterogeneous part. I see they have an honors option, obviously, and I know the school system just won an award for AP offerings, right? Will that affect the AP status at all?
The AP offerings, we're not changing our offerings at all. So, for example, in the English courses, a student can still choose to take 11th grade AP and 12th grade AP English. Those still courses exist, and then those courses are not going to be heterogeneously grouped. The good thing about that is, though, some of those students who take the AP courses are also taking the electives. If they can fit it in their schedule, so it's hard for them, some of those students fit in their schedule, but there are students who are doing that. So there's a student who's taking, the 12th grade AP English course, but they really have an interest in poetry, and if they can fit poetry in, they're going to take the poetry course as well. So I think that's a good thing.
And then the NEAS body is, what they say is very important, obviously. So we take it seriously. But in truth, because I'm concerned as a parent and a school committee member, is it true that the expectations raise the results? Do we have data to prove that?
I think we should challenge all students to be successful. And again, this is a very interesting. This is a huge piece of discussion along with, in terms of this NEAS recommendation. And their recommendation is that students take 2 heterogeneously grouped courses in their high school career. We, in our last evaluation, could only say that they took 1. We could not say that all students took 2. With the English offering, we now be able to say that all students sometime in their high school career would take 2 heterogeneously grouped courses. I think the reason for the recommendation is to make sure that it's really for students who might be more struggling learners, to make sure that they are not isolated, or that really to make sure they receive the same curriculum that everyone else does. I think that's the goal of the recommendation, and I think we do that within our school, that we allow access for all students to the same curriculum, and that's really the goal. The big picture, sort of like I said about the scheduling, we're not going to just totally throw it out and go to a block schedule. We've kind of already said no block schedule. This isn't a move to say we're going to go to all heterogeneously grouped courses in the high school 9 through 12. We just want to make sure that we're offering equitable opportunities for all our students to access the curriculum. And I think if having 2 or 3 heterogeneously grouped courses through their high school career is beneficial, but I would also think that grouping in some areas is definitely beneficial as well.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
And yeah, if I can, just to your point, Scott, and just on this expectation thing, it's in my experience as a coach, or just in general, I think it's a culture that I'm excited whether these classes show progress academically, we may never know. But I think the important thing is that the staff and the team has that mindset that every kid has a chance, and how often that kids are going to live up to your expectations, absolutely. And just that positive atmosphere that it's going to create, you're going to see growth. Whether it's the very minute growth, you're going to see it. And I think that I commend the team for, because I think that's the foundation that is going to create, whether it's huge academic success, we're not going to know, but it's going to create a better student and a better young person for that. Absolutely.
And if I can just build on my answer to you in one way, and because you went to the AP, there has been a lot of data stating that if a student takes an AP course in high school, their chance of success in college is much better. Taking an AP course and getting a 2 on the exam, and a 2 is not considered a passing score. A passing score is considered to be 3, 4, or 5. But even a student who takes the course and gets a 2, that there is data to say that they are more prepared for college-level materials. So some school districts have open enrollment for AP, and anyone can take an AP course. And so, and that would be supportive of that heterogeneous grouping, of having open enrollment and allowing all students access to take even AP courses, because some of the data suggests they'll be more successful in college.
Excellent. Thank you, Scott.
Great. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, under our management and operations standard, I'll just give you a personnel update. As Connie Pooler, our nurse and nurse leader, is retiring, and we have hired a new nurse. We'll introduce everybody in September, all the new teachers. And Sandy Dobretz, our grade 3 teacher, is also retiring. The new hires since we last met is Kristen Andrade, speech language pathologist. Matthew Kavanaugh is music teacher at the Carver Elementary School. You know, he knows he has big shoes to fill, and he's very excited. Getting a job as a music teacher is one of the toughest now at all, and so he's very excited to be working with our students in Carver, and we're very thankful to have him. He's been at the concerts, taking notes, so it'll be a nice transition. Unfortunately, Alex Chipman called and said he took another job, so we have to cancel him off and hire another English teacher. Morgan Dwyer, English teacher, she's a long-term substitute for someone out on a second year of child rearing leave. We hired Rebecca Esip as the nurse at Carver Elementary School, Keandra Markham, English teacher at the middle high school, Lauren Patriziak, math at the middle high school, Christine Riley as a vision specialist in our elementary school, and Petra Sheely is going to be our new science teacher at the middle high school. So we
Quite a bit of transition in the English department.
Yes, retirements and maternity leaves. Oh, I should say that Michelle Taylor had a baby girl on Friday, March 31st, and she's very healthy, nice little baby named Faye. And is it yesterday or today that Aaron?
Had her baby
This morning. Aaron Young has a nice, healthy baby boy, Finn. So she's the department chair of mathematics, and we're still waiting on another English teacher, Beth Goodwin, to have her her baby. They were all due within 2 weeks, so we're just baby central over there.
Congratulations to them, yes.
Yes.
I just have a question on the music teacher.
Mhm.
Is he going to be taking over instrument lessons and band as well?
You know, I don't know, we haven't talked to him about that. That is a private enterprise for band, yes. Band is a stipend position, but Mr. Barricat ran music lessons as a private enterprise sponsored through the PTO. It's not something the schools offer, so I haven't had that conversation with him yet.
So are we there's a very real possibility we won't have lessons next year, just band, or how will that look for those kids that are playing instruments this year?
Like I said, I don't know if
We
the
don't
answer
know.
is yes or no.
We may not
yet.
have a program.
I don't know that, because
Okay.
there's lots of ways for him. It's sort of a conflict of interest for your music teacher to provide lessons at your school for his own students. We had to get the PTO to sponsor it, to eliminate the conflict of interest. The next person may choose not to do this as part of at the school, because it is, I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
It makes things tougher on them for reporting. So it's something we have to work out with him. I just don't have an answer right now.
Okay.
So enrollment and migration, you get the end of the year report, which compares the two blue numbers at the bottom. October 1 is our official numbers, because we haven't backed everyone out who's left or gone in September. And so we ended the year with 2 less students that we began the year, which is virtually even. So it was a very steady year. Of course, the amount of children that went in and out is astounding, but, and you have that data.
Right, and obviously we know this data is important because this is our funding for next year. So those numbers are vital to that.
Well, it'll be next year's October 1.
Correct, but
we're better start,
Right,
yes.
we're off to a better start than
Yeah.
where we could be, yes.
And we filled all our slots for school choice, so
Great.
we'll be in good shape there. Like I say, though, we lose all of the vocational students. So we do keep really good track of all of this, because it makes sense along the way when you're trying to make plans for next year. Then the teachers voted and asked that we wait to vote till after they voted this year. So we need to ratify the new educator evaluation system for Carver.
I'd like to make a motion for the new education evaluation standards
We have
as
a-
written.
Yes, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion over the new standards?
I just want to say something, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
I was impressed reading through it, which is a lot of reading, but what I saw a lot of was mutually agreed upon, which I think is a great sign that the administration and the teachers have a lot that they're going to be mutually agreeing upon. So that sounds good to me as I read it.
Thank you. Any other thoughts or discussions on this? I know we've had a chance to digest. And as we do that, I do want to commend the work that was put into this. I don't know what other models there are in the state, but this one's, the way this was worked on, I do want to commend, and maybe a model for future district as they look at this. So with that, I will bring it to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? It is unanimous. Thank you.
There we
And
go.
thank you to our teachers as well.
And the team, it was a very large team, and we met 13 times, and we all learned a lot. And we agreed, as part of the process, to look at this every year and finding out what works and what doesn't work, because this is brand new to everyone, and we don't want to lock ourselves into something that doesn't work for both parties.
Sure, it's definitely an evolving process.
Right. I think your collaboration put you ahead of the curve with it, too. A lot of districts are far behind where you're at with that right now.
We were a good group, and we intend to continue to be a good group.
With that, we'll move to school handbooks.
Yes, handbooks. And first is Paula and Okay, she's going to,
Paula and Paula.
Paula and
Paula and Paula show.
Next year, Amy.
Welcome, Paula.
So first, I'd like to thank members of the Handbook Committee, and they are also members of the School Council. That would be Kathy Doherty, who is our community rep, and Stephanie Clardy, who is our parent, and of course, Ruby Maestas, who's the principal. Technically, I'm not on the committee, but on the council, but I do go. So I'm going to make this hopefully as brief and painless as possible. I just want to start off by saying that dates, names, the table of contents, and any typographical errors that exist currently will be corrected. And I'm only going to actually talk about significant changes, and even those are not that significant. We did a lot of reorganization this time. So I'm going to start on page 5. I'm going to skip down so you can follow along. Basically on page 5 we have our eye care rules. As you've heard, we're moving to PBIS, and so we're going to have the overarching guidelines for behavior there. Be respectful, be responsible, and be the best you can be. Skipping down to page 15, there's school information. It actually says on your sheet start time and sign-in location, and it's not really the start time that we're changing, it's the arrival time. Students are supposed to, if they're being dropped off, arrive sometime between 8:05, and currently it says 8:25, and that time was associated with the last bus.
We're going to move that to 8:30, right?
I'm sorry?
We're going to move that to 8:30 for me and my family.
No. In fact, next year, you're going to have to be a little bit earlier, Mr. Kennedy.
Paula's the gatekeeper, and
I am
I'm
the
usually
gate
last
guard
car
in the
through
morning.
gate, so.
And 8:20 is going to be the absolute latest that you can arrive there. After that, you need to sign in at the office, sir. And
Yes.
that sign-in
I am aware of
location,
that policy very well.
it used to refer to the Governor John, but since the Governor John Carver has no access to the public right now, it's and will not next year either, everyone will have to sign in at the Irwin K. Washburn. We're also going to add headings, so this will appear in the table of contents for arrival. And dismissal procedures. For some reason, our dismissal procedures are currently on page 24 of the handbook under a different section, and we're going to move them to page 15 because it makes sense. On page 16, we're going to remove the last paragraph there, which refers to our emergency procedures. If there's an emergency declared by the Massachusetts Office of Emergency Management. We have emergency procedures in another section of the book. It's on page 29, so we're going to take that section and move it over there. Page 19. And it references our volunteer program. And again, this is just kind of a technical change, changing parents and visitors to volunteers, because that's the section that we're talking about, so it just made sense. We're adding information regarding the office location again. Again, there's reference to the Governor John. We're moving it to the Irwin K. Washburn building. Let's see. It also mentions badges. We want to add that each volunteer will wear a volunteer badge obtained from the office, which is the before the second to the last sentence. And then just under parent visits and Irwin K. Washburn building is going to be added before the word office. It does give a location for picking up badges. It does say principal's office, but technically that's really at the reception desk or the main office, so we're just going to correct that. There is a section on parent information, and under that section we reference the PTO, so we're changing the heading to parent information and PTO, and the PTO number listed is a non-working number, so we're going to find out what that is and make sure it's in the book. On page 20, under school council, it talks about elections. It says the PTO holds elections in the fall, and just to make it clearer, it's the PTO holds elections for school council in the fall. So we're just going to add that in there. 23, we're deleting the learning benchmarks. The benchmarks have been around for a while, and they don't relate to the Common Core. So we're going to delete that section in its entirety. And then under Common Core, in the last paragraph of that section, add reference to the new science standards and the PARC, transitioning from the MCAS exam to the PARC. On page 24, we are deleting the section that's entitled attendance, and this is where our dismissal procedure was previously, and we're going to call this section tardiness in early dismissal. We're removing the paragraph from here relating to dismissal, and as I said before, bringing that to the front of the book. The rest of this pertains to both tardiness and early dismissal, and again, making sure that there are appropriate references in there to the Irwin K. Washburn building, so there's no confusion. Let's see. Also on page 27, there is a reference to kindergarten screening. We wanted to add there, we did start a new initial screening in the spring in addition to vision and hearing. We are doing a brief screening for letter recognition, number recognition, being able to say their first and last name, and being able to write their first name at least appropriately. The reason why we're doing that is to help us with placement, because we do placement in the summertime before our additional screening is done in the fall. So we wanted to add that to the handbook. On page 29, this is, again, regarding building security and references to the building location. We also wanted to take out two sentences that didn't seem to make too much sense there. Volunteers will follow their usual procedures. We have a volunteer section. And then, thank you for your cooperation in this matter. We just didn't think they were necessary. Also, after the second sentence under emergency procedures, we're talking about in this section, fire drills and things like that. We did this year move our bus evacuation to the Pond Street bus barn, and the reason for doing that is because it would interfere with our drop-off location. I'm sure you're all familiar with the traffic and parking issues we have at the elementary school. So we just wanted to make parents aware that, there could be another location for our bus evacuation. The buses do their routes, they go to the bus barn, it's maybe a 10 or 15-minute delay for the kids getting to school. They do the evacuation, they get back on the bus, and they go to school. But we just thought we'd make that public. We're taking we're taking that paragraph from page 16, the one I told you about with the emergency management, and we're moving that to this page. On page 30, and this actually has a lot to do with Ms. Farrar over here, we're making some changes that she requested for our lunch program. So the update under student lunch program would be add that prices are subject to change after the last sentence in the first paragraph. We're also going to add an explanation of the cards that students use at lunch by saying it's not a charge card, but a tool for the students to use in the serving line. We also wanted to update the website instead of, I believe it was it www.NutriKids before? Yeah, now it's myschoolbucks.com, so we're going to change that. And then adding a sentence under the subheading foster children to read foster children are eligible for free meal benefits. On page 31, this is still referring to the lunch program. After the last sentence in the first paragraph, adding backpack notes and email alerts will be sent to the parent guardian, and this is in reference to IOUs. We're going to move, actually that's just a technical change. In the first sentence on page 31, I think it actually might appear as the, yeah, it's the first, actually, it's the second sentence in the first paragraph. It says, if a student forgets or loses their money, their lunch, money, or ticket. We don't use lunch tickets anymore, so we're deleting that and just saying lunch or money. And then we're going to make an additional change referencing the account. I'm a little out of order here. So this emergency meal must be repaid within 2 days. So basically that's referring to if a student has an IOU, they won't be denied food, but right now it says peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and we don't offer that anymore. It's a cheese sandwich. So that change will be made, and then the third paragraph will say it's referenced as an emergency meal and it has to be repaid. We're also going to add a fourth paragraph. If there is a zero or negative balance on a student's account, they will not be allowed to charge snacks or extra meal components. Students eligible for free or reduced priced meals must pay cash or use the prepayment system for these items. And then there'll be a fifth paragraph that says, no child will be refused food or milk. However, borrowed money must be repaid within 2 days. Under textbooks and school supplies, we're going to add school supplies after textbooks in the first line. The reason for that is because we hope at the elementary school that eventually we'll have a little more technology, and we're not sure what that will involve in terms of student use. And so we wanted to make sure that we had some provision for that in the handbook. So that's really what we're looking ahead. We're also going to add or supplies after the words destroyed books. On page 33, under parking, we rephrased the first sentence. There were 3 of us in the room. We read it like 6 times, totally did not understand what it meant, so we rewrote it to say the right side of the driveway in front of the Governor John Carver building and the circle in front of the Irwin K. Washburn building are designated fire lanes. On page 36, under Code of Conduct General Rules, we're going to delete the eye care rules and insert information regarding PBIS, and again, the statements, be responsible, be respectful, be the best you can be. Under birthday celebrations, we're changing the first sentence to read, birthday invitations cannot be distributed in school.
I think that's one of those we need to highlight for our parents at home.
Yes. It's just not, if in the elementary school, if all students are not invited and 1 student or 2 students are left out, it really does create issues for us, so, and for those students. So they are not allowed to be distributed in school. On page 38, for some reason, vandalism and defacing of property was only listed under bathrooms. We know that that does happen in other areas of the school, so we have taken that sentence and we're going to move it to general rules. And under playground, we removed due to the pea stone covering. It talks about appropriate shoes, but the shoes that are listed there are also in another section of the book saying that you should not be wearing Crocs to school, and et cetera. And then we're going to, on page 38, strike the last line of that section, which is, students are not allowed to leave the playground without permission. The reason why we're striking that is because it does appear somewhere else, about 5 sentences before that. So it was just repetitive. On page 39, under disciplinary procedures, consequences within the classroom, we're going to rewrite B and C and then delete the current B that is there. The current B just says parent-teacher contact. We wanted to make sure that it was understood that it would include all of those things previously stated in A. So it'll read, teacher-student discussion regarding incident, appropriate behavior expected, any teacher consequence which may include after-school detention, And then in parentheses, if after school detention, 24-hour notice to the parent. Parent is responsible for providing transportation home, and then comma, and parent-teacher contact. So all of that would happen. And then C would be referral to the office after exhausting A and B, if a very serious infraction. And then under administrative consequences, we just wanted to reorder the list there. So first would be warning to student, then loss of recess, then loss of lunchroom privileges, parent contact, office detention, after-school detention, short-term suspension, long-term suspension, referral to superintendent. And we're going to delete the bullet before a statement, the last statement in that section, because it really isn't a consequence. It's just an explanation of the above. So it really shouldn't be bulleted in that section.
Could you just expound on loss of lunchroom privileges? That's not loss of eating lunch.
No, that's why I said not loss of lunch. It's loss of lunchroom privileges. If sometimes a student may need to visit with the adjustment counselor or the associate principal or principal during lunchtime, and so that is what that would refer to. And the reason why we reordered it is because we have progressive discipline, and this is more in line with that. Makes more sense. And that's really it.
So this is something the school committee votes on, the changes to the school handbook, because the handbook, okay, just a second, but the handbook is an extension of school committee policy.
It is policy, yes.
So that's why you vote on this and not many other things. Ruby?
I just wanted to make sure that we highlight one other thing.
This is on page 24, and it says, we're changing a sentence beginning with parents who pick up a child. Oh, yes, I'm sorry about that. This is very important. Parents who pick up a child at the end of the day are to park to the side of the Governor John Carver building next to the cafeteria, and delete where parking spaces have been reserved for parents at the end of that sentence. First of all, we don't have parking spaces reserved for parents. But secondly, we're changing our pickup location for next year. Currently, students are picked up in the Erwin K. Washburn cafeteria at the end of the day. That's also the location of the after-school Y program. And with the Y students down there and parents coming in, it can get a little confusing. So we thought that we would have the drop-off and the pickup location in the same place. So students will be dismissed from the Governor John next year. And we'll, do it the same way. They'll be escorted over by an adult and dismissed from there. It should be helpful with the traffic and with the Y program.
Great. Any comments or discussions from the committee? A lot to digest, but
I had two, actually. One is a question. It's because I agree with it fully. It has to do with the screening for the kindergarten, the pre-screening. I think that's a fantastic idea. But my question is more to, and maybe to Liz, I'm not sure. I know that the federal government established preschool standards. I don't know if anything's been ratified with that yet. Are we seeing a problem with a good mix of students coming in without any preschool experience, knowing that the kindergarten standards do start running right away these days?
Well, Paula's really the best person. She's our kindergarten master, but it isn't federal regulations, it's state in Massachusetts. We have a huge new set of state standards, and I'll let Paula answer because she is our expert.
Well, I will tell you that Terry Sexton, who's our lead teacher in kindergarten, does look at statistics every year for incoming students, and based on a recent discussion with her, my understanding is that there are far fewer students coming in this year without preschool experience, so that's good news. Yeah. And we are looking at, the state is really pushing higher standards for preschools in the Commonwealth. And the DESC is working with, and I'm going to get this wrong.
EEC.
Thank you. The EEC to really work on that. The preschools are going to have meet a quality standard. And we are participating, as Mrs. Maestas said when she was going through the school improvement plan, we're participating in the Massachusetts Kindergarten Entry Assessment. And really, that is, it's going to be beneficial to kindergarten, and our kindergarten teachers are really excited about it because it will help with differentiated instruction and knowing where our students are throughout the course of the year and what they're developmentally ready for. But it will also help to the state to identify weaknesses in our preschool system, and hopefully they're working to sort of beef that up so that the kids coming into kindergarten all have a level playing field. So that's what they're working toward next year. And not only is our kindergarten participating in that, but our preschool will be participating in that as well.
As part of another grant opportunity, Mrs. Sexton and a few kindergarten teachers are working on a kindergarten boost program, which we will provide in August for any preschool student transitioning into kindergarten who wants to go to this and to try to work with families to help bring all students up to a level playing field as possible. So we are working on that as well.
Do we have and I guess this is random because the options are pretty much unlimited that way, but is there a connection to local preschools with the school as far as communication and expectation at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
We got 2 different grants to work with local preschool providers and organized for-profit preschool providers, and Michelle has met with them Michelle Taylor, our literacy director, over a 2-year period and provided professional development and also opportunities for them to collaborate with each other. And then they were all invited to our parent education program that we called the Preschool Pajama Party. And so we are intending through this next grant, the MTSS grant, which I'll talk about later, to expand that program to outreach. So
That's fantastic.
we've done quite a bit.
Awesome.
With that.
Just another quick one, was on page 30, where you said update the student lunch program to prices are subject to change. That's kind of a open statement there.
The reason that was put there was because we weren't sure if we possibly would request an increase for next year. And I wasn't sure when the handbook was going to go out, so I didn't think it should have an incorrect amount if it had changed.
And I believe that's a topic of our discussion later on, as far as prices for the food service tonight in our agenda. So
Well,
I don't know
I guess my
those are
statement would be
tied
that if you
together.
place that language in there, it doesn't matter what we start the year with, it means prices are subject to
Right,
change at
it's
any moment.
leaving it open,
So it
right.
leaves sort of an open window there that might create some ambiguity.
I think if there's a decision, though, made tonight, we can strike it.
Change that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the committee?
So you need to vote.
We do need a vote, yes. So we need a motion to accept the changes to the Carver Elementary School Handbook for 2013.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the changes made to the Carver Elementary School Book. Would that be the 2013-2014 year?
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Again, with that page 30, I'd feel more comfortable with a solid figure than leaving that as a gray, to accept that as is that way.
So can we leave that to pending our decision in the next section? It will be either current price or suggested price?
I'd feel better with that. I think this is fantastic. It shows a lot of work. But I think that's a gray area I wouldn't want to see left open that way.
Sure. So with that pending change on that particular item on page 30, I guess that's how we can word it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it is unanimous, and
Thank you, Paula.
with a finality
Thank you.
to come in a bit. Thank you.
And the middle high school joined together as one, but they decided to keep their handbooks for students and families different because the different age groups have different needs. And so Christine will present the middle school portion to be reviewed tonight.
Thank you. And before I do that, could I thank you all for approving school choice in 10 slots for kindergarten, because I'm very proud that my 4-year-old daughter, soon-to-be 5-year-old daughter, has been accepted, and we are very excited to be starting kindergarten this year here in Carver, so thank you all. So the handbook changes this year, I've never presented them this way. I usually just itemize my changes, but this year, if you were to look at our handbook as it looks right now and how it looks on this document, it's very different, because while there are differences in the middle and high school handbooks, in just some policies that are more age appropriate, and developmentally it's more appropriate for the students, the format was completely different in both the middle and high school, and I thought that that was confusing for parents and staff and everybody to look at it. So while we have juggled around and really reformatted and organized our handbook as it looks in this document, there's a lot of it that's, the language is exactly the same. So I thought this was the clearest, easiest way for me to explain that to you tonight. I'd like to start also by recognizing the members of the handbook committee. Doug Fees, the 6th grade math teacher, Maria Calvo, Spanish teacher, and Trish Winslow, our guidance counselor, helped me work on this document, and particularly Mr. Fees and Ms. Calvo just spent hours and hours of their personal time going over this and put an awful lot of hard work into it. So as we look through it, anything that I highlighted in yellow is a policy change or a wording change in our current handbook. Anything that I highlighted in gray is just updated information that will be updated before this goes to press. And then anything that I highlighted in blue, that's language that's already in the high school document that I just transferred directly over. So you've approved it in the high school, that's how it reads currently in the high school document, and I just edited it to ours for consistency. So the first 4 pages, that's information I deleted completely from our current handbook. So the first page is just the parental consent for pictures. It's useless to be in the handbook. We hand students the form, they sign it, and they return it to us at the beginning of the school year. So there's no need for that to be in the handbook. And then the following 3 pages, it's our definitions for short-term, long-term suspensions and expulsion. And it's just formatted in slightly different in the high school handbook, and I just, for consistency, the policies are the same. I just removed it from our handbook and copied the exact same version from the high school, and you'll see that as we look through it. Then if you turn to page 3, the table of contents also, this will follow, the table of contents will follow the exact same format set up as far as the order of things as the high school handbook now. The next 3 pages are the middle high school vision statement, mission statement, core values and beliefs, and our learning expectations. And they were in the middle school handbook, not completely in this version, but I just took the same pages from the high school book. And then if you look at page 6, we did update and make a couple of changes highlighted in yellow. We have our letter from the principal, and we added, just for clarity to parents, there's some strategies listed there to help students be successful in our school, and we changed the language there a little bit to be a little more clear to parents. Just some information about the agenda book being an excellent resource to record homework and communicate other important information, and then information about the forecast, providing weekly planning and helping students. And then also under Jupiter grades, we felt it was a nice reminder to parents to keep current their email address in Jupiter grades, because email addresses are frequently changing, and we use that often as a communication tool with parents. Then the next 4 or 5 pages highlighted in gray, that will all be, that's our school directory, our school calendar. All of that will be updated before this goes to print.
Can I just stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
On page, it says 12 at the bottom, it's under the directory. It's got the old school committee information on it. It's next to, it's right after your back welcome page. So you got your,
I think we all seem to have a different one from Liz. I have that same one too.
yeah,
Liz
so I
is-
didn't know if,
These are highlighted, so
so it is
they are
changed?
separate changes.
Okay, so somehow we have a different one.
Yeah. they
All
were-
right, I just wanted to make sure that everybody had the,
So the part that I have highlighted in gray that will be updated, I do have the Carver School Committee,
yep. Although,
and then the administrative
Right,
page.
these are all gonna be changed.
Ours just didn't come out in gray that way.
got it, somehow we lost the highlight on that page, that's all.
Okay, and then teachers,
Okay,
bell schedule will stay the same, and then the school calendar should be highlighted in gray.
okay.
Is that
And the
okay?
calendar's not highlighted. So we just lost some highlights.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. And then I have on page 12 the general information, and the general information on the high school book reads the same now, because I just copied from their book the bulletin board call and telephone number, which we do have in Access. This isn't new for us, but it just wasn't included in our handbook. And also the last portion there, the parent guardian notification of student absences from school. That is what we practice, but now it's just identified in the book for parents. And then it stays the same until on page 18. There's a yellow highlight under field trips. And we just felt that it was important. We've now added to our information about field trips, students who do not attend field trips are expected to attend school and will follow a modified schedule. So should we
That's on
just want...
23, guys, just so you follow.
Oh, I'm
I think we've got
sorry.
some
We
different
have
pages than
different page
you.
numbers.
That's okay. It's on, that one's on 23. Just so you follow along.
Okay. So under field trips, we wanted to add that students who do not attend field trips are expected to attend school and will follow a modified schedule. So if students choose not to attend the Camp Warrendale field trip, or, students don't want to go on the whale watch on Friday because they will get motion sickness,
It's not a free day?
we still expect them to be in school, and we have arrangements for them and a schedule for them to follow. All right, so now I'm guessing we turn to page 25, or not. Student responsibilities.
30.
Page 30, student responsibilities. The high school had a nice introduction about student responsibilities that I just copied onto ours. And then it follows the same format as far as appearance and dress code. We did add, I think it was last year, we added the length of the item number C, the short and skirt length. But now this year, we wanted to also add in there that short shorts would not be allowed in school.
The latest fashions, yes.
I know, they're the rage now.
About 6-inch heels. Almost wiping my graduation.
So now, we get into a little bit more of our changes in the code of conduct. I'm afraid to say a page number. I have page 27.
32.
But 32, our code of conduct. We've really defined, this was not in place in the middle school handbook before, but we've defined the progressive consequences. And the teacher detention, we have added, teachers will enforce all rules necessary to maintain proper order in their classrooms. Teacher detentions will be assigned for minor incidents occurring within the teacher's jurisdiction. For example, inappropriate classroom behavior, unexcused tardiness to class, lack of preparation for class. Teacher detentions take precedence over all after-school activities and will be served from 2:10 to 2:50. And then failure to report to a teacher detention will result in an office referral and an office detention. And then we defined office detention is held Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays in the middle school cafeteria from 2:10 to 2:50 and is monitored by faculty. Office detentions will be reported on the student discipline records, which is really the major difference between a teacher detention and an office detention. But failure to report to an office detention will result in a Saturday school detention. And then on the following page, I took the high school language that just gave some examples of what behaviors might result in an office detention. Thought that was relevant to middle school as well. And then defined Saturday school detention, which we do have in place. And right now it's defined as an extension of detention and will be assigned when deemed necessary by school administration. Saturday school hours are from 8 to 11. And then we've added Saturday detentions will be monitored by faculty. Students who fail to report to an assigned Saturday detention will be issued an in-school suspension, which is our practice right now, but it just wasn't clearly defined in the book.
Is that a stipend position, or is that a volunteer?
It's a stipend position,
Yeah.
and it's posted, and teachers can apply for it.
It's in the contract.
And then we have some language that was already in place for in-school, out-of-school suspension and expulsion. And then if you turn a couple of pages, you'll see several pages of blue, and that's the part that I edited out at the beginning and just replaced, so it reads exactly the same as the high school. And then we get into the code of conduct and an alphabetical list of behaviors. And this is much more organized and reformatted than what it looked like in our handbook as it reads right now. And we just went through really the high school and the middle school. Almost these list of behaviors read identically. But things that were missing from the middle school handbook were leaving school property, which very rarely, but occasionally that does happen. So now it's listed in our book as students who leave school property without permission during regular school hours. Once they enter the building, they will be subject to a suspension. And then I think there's one more, if you turn a couple more pages. Very rarely, but it does happen, public displays of affection were not posted in our handbook, so now we've included that as well. And really, this is the way it's been handled if it happens. If necessary, parents or guardians will be notified of behavior and possible disciplinary action. Now, this is a big change in our policy, tardy to school. Maybe 4 lines from the bottom. It says students who are tardy 5 times during a term will be issued an office detention. Currently, all students who are tardy 5 times in a term are issued a Saturday detention. And each additional 5 times they're tardy, they're issued a Saturday detention. So we're reducing our consequences to the first 5 times, and I'm religious about monitoring attendance. If they're tardy 5 times in a term now, we're going to issue an office detention because I think it's important that we monitor. We want the kids here, we want them on time, and we're giving them a consequence. And if it becomes excessive and that they're tardy an additional 5, then a Saturday school seems a little more reasonable. Just so we're showing that we're documenting, we're watching, we're communicating to parents. Parents would know when their students hit 5 and have the office detention, and then if it's chronic and leads to 10 or 15, then they would be issued Saturday detentions after that. So that is one of our major changes in policy.
Excuse me, Ms. Cabral, so you're saying that before this handbook is changed, if they're tardy 5 times, they get Saturday suspended?
Right now, I have 10 students who will be in Saturday school on June 15th because they've hit 5 or 10 tardies this term. I know, isn't it horrible? But, so I want to reduce it to 5 in office detention, communication to parents, and then if it's 10, then it's excessive, and that's a Saturday detention. And then if we jump ahead, this is our last and other major change in the attendance policy. And this comes from the law and regulations more so than it comes from us as a school. But it's absences excessive, parents or guardians will be notified of excessive unexcused absences as defined by Mass General Law, Chapter 119, Sections 21 and 39E through 39L. A student may be considered habitually truant when he or she fails to attend school for more than 8 school days in a quarter. And such absences may result in a school taking legal action to remedy the situation. Currently, we've been following the law, and that's how we've been monitoring attendance. Every 2 weeks, we run attendance if a student's missing 10% of the school year. So in term 1, if they're missing 5 days, we always notify parents. Or as you get halfway through the school year and it's 90 days in, if they're missing that 10%, that's how we have been filing with the courts for chronic truancy. And the policy, and that's, we file a CHINS, Child in Need of Services for not attending. But the policy is going to change to child requiring assistance, and the courts are asking that we refer students for absences 8 days in a term. So that's what we will be, we'll be monitoring attendance, we'll be communicating with parents, checking in with kids. And it doesn't happen in every case, but it's important if there's a medical need or extenuating circumstances that we're communicating with parents and we know why their children are absent from school. And in some cases, then if they're missing that 8 days in a term, then we may be following what's the child requiring assistance, CRA.
So what's your communication before those 8 days?
Currently, we mail home a letter after 5, and we have like a 3-step process. We mail home 2 letters before the 3rd letter reads that we're filing a CHINS. So now we haven't really. We will either mail home a letter, because it's going to move faster, with the 8 days in a term. So we really haven't ironed it out. I'm assuming we will be calling home. It'll be very easy to meet with kids, because we're monitoring in a 45-day window now, too, not in a 90-day window or, but in every 45-day window, it'll be a lot easier, I think, for us to be calling parents and checking in with kids and communicating with them. So I think the changes will be much more effective and useful for us. And then just at the very end of the book, we have the parent signature page for receiving the handbook, and I just added the little blurb from the high school handbook to introduce that, and that's it.
Thank you.
So do you have any other questions?
With that, I'll open up to the committee. Is there any questions for Christine? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to accept the middle school handbook changes.
I'll make a motion to accept the Carver Middle High School changes for the 2013-2014 school year.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think it's great that you did that overlap and created more continuity with it. I think that's an excellent move.
Thank you. I didn't know if I was up for the challenge, but I will tell you, Maria and Doug they did an incredible job, and they motivated me. They were really excited and ambitious about going over every detail of it, so they really did a great job.
Just seems like it'd be easier for you to work and the kids to transition through that way much better. So nice job overall. Really.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right. With that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous.
John, it's your time.
Okay. That was the last. In this case, I am last and least. Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go over the changes to the grade 9 through 12 handbook for students and parents and teachers. First, I'd just like to thank Mrs. McIntosh, Mrs. Reed, Mrs. Clements, Mr. Daniel D'Souza, a student, Ms. Cassidy Brown, and Ms. Rachel Mann, also students, for being on the committee. All of those people attended all the meetings, and these were some of the things we considered. We had discussion amongst ourselves as a group, and then the people in that group, even though all of the teachers were math teachers, we didn't do really a lot of math in the handbook, but they
They have
asked,
the page numbers correct.
Yeah, there was some numbering, probably. These people all went out and sort of spoke to their constituents and came back with feedback, and then we met again and we came up with the following. So I'm going to go in order of the pages. Personnel changes and role changes will happen. Mrs. Grow and Mrs. Calderoni in the office, they're always very much on top of that, and they'll check with me sometime in the summer about all of that information. They'll change it on their own and they'll do it right, and I'll say, yes, that's great. So those changes will happen. So starting with graduation requirements, we are going to have a new graduation requirement that starts with this year's freshmen, the current freshmen, and that is that they have to pass 4 years of math. So currently, students are required to pass 3 years of math. Students who score needs improvement on math MCAS have to take and pass 4 years of math in order to get a diploma, and ultimately, between all of the students who are taking 4 years of math anyway, because that just fit their schedule and what their outcomes were in terms of what they wanted to do after high school, and then the students who had to take 4 years because they scored needs improvement, it really became a very small number of students, maybe 10 students, who actually could not take 4 years of math. So ultimately, we decided to make that a requirement. And it's probably a good thing that everybody does take 4 years of math. This year we had a few, this is the next item, promotion requirements. Every year students are required to have a certain number of credits to move on to be considered a sophomore, a junior, a senior, etc. And this year we had a lot of dialogue with students where they were surprised by the things that they could not do because they did not have the right number of credits. So we had done a poor job of communicating with students about that. We even have had some students a couple of weeks before MCAS, we call, Mr. Neve calls them down and says, we're just letting you know that you realize you're not taking MCAS this year because you're not a sophomore technically, you'll be taking it next year. And some of those students really never really thought about that or knew that, and so that became a surprise. And when it came time for prom, and we have some students that were short credits to be juniors, but we're in a position to be able to make up those credits, so they would probably still graduate on time. When it came time to say, oh no, you actually don't get to buy a prom ticket or invite a guest, that just created a lot of different discussions. So we decided to make it more clear. So this chart that you see, the first two columns have always been there, the numbers 10 and 20. That's why we had the math teachers, I think. The numbers were there, and that third column wasn't there. So we didn't want to term things in the negative, but we sort of had no choice just to say, if you don't have these credits, these are the things you're not going to be able to do. So I won't read through all of them, but you can see that basically it talks about class office. It talks about some of the activities that are associated with each class, each grade level. It talks about state testing, and it talks about state testing for sophomores and also for juniors, just anticipating the possibility that the PARCC exam would be for juniors. That would be scary if you were taking PARCC. You had one shot as a senior to take PARCC, but. You can see the items that are listed there. So also generated things that happened this year. Field trips. We did have this strange thing happening this year where when one class was taking a field trip, for example, the seniors had a field trip to Six Flags, there would be a dozen or so students in the other grades who weren't in school, but then they would be there at the field trip. So that was a little bit of a slippery slope in the sense that we obviously didn't want all field trips to become a possibility for every student to just say, I think I'll go on that field trip. So we put in this rule that says that well, it says two things. One is that we can consider student attendance which we always could do, but we hadn't really made that clear to the students, that their attendance record could render them ineligible to attend field trips. and that any student that is not a registered member of a field trip who is identified as present at that destination will be considered truant and will not be allowed credit for the work or to make up any assessments they miss. And that was a tricky conversation I had with, generally speaking, the students that went did have their parents' permission. So I had to have a conversation with the parents about why we really felt we had to address that when we have students and staff members at this place, seeing those students there. It's not the same as, sometimes parents do remove their kids from school to do family activities, and that happens, and those aren't always truancies, but in this case, we felt like the impact on the school as a whole required that we address it.
It becomes a legal issue, that when they join a field trip for whom they're not assigned, then we are responsible for them.
Or they would actually join the group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or be in parallel, even that it becomes, the parents in good faith drop them off,
It is a challenge, yes.
So this is a very good thing, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of it from that perspective, so I just, have an intuitive mind like that. It just happens. So,
Guess you're in the right job.
yeah, we have, the next item is a dress code. Actually, we removed the word spaghetti straps from the list of things that would be absolutely banned. So we increased our subjectivity a little bit, really because very recently at a lot of formal events, we had a lot of seniors that we ended up sending home in accordance with the policy because they were wearing what really were very tasteful dresses that had thin straps that tied in the back, and we just said we're going to have to adjust that. And some of the things they were wearing were very nice, and so I had to have that conversation and said, yes, that's very nice, but it has spaghetti straps, so you're gonna have to go. And that also was a hard conversation for some of the students and the parents. And anytime you address somebody's clothing, it's hard not for them not to feel that you're criticizing what they're wearing, and hard not for them to feel that in some way you're saying that they've made an inappropriate decision or that it's not tasteful. So we decided that really the issue is not necessarily the actual strap. We still left strapless in the dress code, and that we'll have to make judgments in other more subjective ways. So we can do that.
So out with straps out with short shorts, in with straps.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Food and drink policy, we altered it a little bit, basically to allow students to have flavored water. So far we've been addressing students with flavored water and saying you can't have that, you have to get rid of that. And some teachers say, yeah, I don't care, and some teachers have said, no, I'm going to follow the handbook as it is. So we're allowing flavored water. We decided, several students over the course of this year had asked me about electronic cigarettes. And I think they knew the answer to the question, but they were pointing out that that the rules don't say anything about it. So thankfully, they asked that question. So we changed smoking.
We love that.
Yes, we changed smoking and use of tobacco products to smoking and use of tobacco or nicotine products, just because the electronic cigarette is a nicotine delivery system. And then we, in fact, identified electronic cigarettes specifically.
Next year it'll be something else.
Yeah. I saw this morning that they have aerosol energy things now, which is interesting.
Inhalants, yes.
Yes, it's an energy drink, but you don't drink it, it's very odd.
That's not giving a lesson.
So, the ad said that energy drinks are sold 5 hours ago. So that was clever. We also changed the policy in terms of the locker room, and this sort of limited some convenience for students, but ultimately the locker room has just become a place where, a dozen to 20 times a year something is stolen out of the locker room. So We've just limited student access to that room so that anybody who isn't actually going to PE class is no longer allowed in the locker room except for before and after school. And we have decided that being there is enough to get a consequence. Even if nothing's missing, there's no issue, just if you're there, you can receive a consequence. Probably a minor consequence at first. The student organizations, our list was very, very negligent, so we fixed that. We just added all of the things that were missing. We removed the diversity task force because that no longer exists. We replaced that with the Gay Straight Alliance. You can see that we added the different types of band and chorus, Captain's Council, Best Buddies, Robotics, Student Council, Student Government, and international travel as activities that students could choose to pursue. So as we add things to the handbook, we also we do all these changes, and then we just have a conversation where we say, can we look through to find things we can remove? Because obviously it would ever expand if we didn't find things that we could remove. So we removed some really ambiguous language that was listed under lost and found. That our rationale was someone who loses something in order to find the lost and found probably doesn't refer to the handbook and say, where are the lost and founds? I'm going to look in the handbook. On page 62,
So there still is lost and found, but it's just not in the
It
handbook.
exists, yes.
Good. I hate to be lost but not found.
Right. In page 62, there was a statement for the students about the security of the school building and the different ways that they could possibly breach that security and what the consequences were for that. Really, all of those different infractions were identified in other places in terms of, students cannot prop open doors, anybody found to let other students in who are not signing in the school the appropriate way can also be held accountable for that. All of those things were in other places, so we removed that sort of redundant statement about the security of the school building. For textbook policy, there was a statement that said replacement costs for textbooks are now as much as $75 per book. We just took that out because, first of all, it's not true. It's probably, there are books that are more expensive than that, so we didn't want to make that limit. And then we just felt like, why set a number, really? And you just have to change it again later. And then we added, students must pay all replacement costs for lost or damaged books to be eligible to participate in graduation and receive a diploma. We also removed, finally, a section, a blurb about working permits. Again, it was just one of those things that we felt no one was really looking to the handbook for that information specifically, and there really wasn't any value to it being there. Really, they just come and ask me or Mrs. Calderoni, and as tempting as it would be to say to them, well, if you go online, you can look in the handbook and you can find everything you need to know about working permits. We usually just answer them. So we took that out. And then again, we're also going to have to probably add in, so our lunch cost in the handbook right now, there is a number. It may be the wrong number, so we'll have to update that as well.
Sounds good. All right, any comments or discussions from the committee on that one?
I just have two real quick. The first one, the implications on that, I think that's great to put that language in there. That's concrete, right? That's saying that this is basically the policy. It's not a variable where maybe not, depending on the student.
Yeah, those are, so there it is concrete, although there has been a part of this policy that we've been breaking ourselves. So we had said that some senior activities were accessible to students with 75 credits, as long as they had a schedule in the building that would get them to 110. But we've decided to no longer do that because of just the level of confusion. And again, it sets an expectation for those students where later on you're having other conversations with them where you're saying, no, I didn't mean you could do that. You could only do that. And it just, it's better for them to know where they stand.
Right, I agree. The other one was just sort of a question, because I know you firmly take care of this. I think when you remove spaghetti straps, is there a concern that might become an issue during the school day? And was there any conversation about possibly establishing something where it's acceptable at formal events or after-school events as opposed to just taking it out altogether, where you allow them at those events to be able to do something like that, but not during the school day, open that window there?
You know, it was those events that sort of inspired the conversation, and Class Day is the event that mixes the two most, because that's the event that the seniors sit on the stage, they're not wearing their gowns, and the entire school attends. So that was one where we specifically were concerned, because we had recently had this announcement to the school that we were gonna, it was getting warmer. So we were starting to say we're going to really be emphasizing the dress code. And I think the next day was Class Day. And so that was probably the most difficult time, because we were saying, no, we just told people about the, you know, that we are really emphasizing the dress code, and we can't have all of you sitting up there dressed this way.
Well, that's why I guess I'm saying if you remove that language,
No,
like with the electronic cigarettes, they're going to try and push those boundaries to where they can find out how far they can go.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, there is other language in there about low-cut shirts, low-cut blouses, and so there becomes that discussion of how low-cut is the shirt. And so when we talked about it in the meeting, we really decided that it's really the cut, you know, and, you know, strapless, we just said we're just going to keep that the way it is, because the risk, I guess, you know, like the Super Bowl, there was a wardrobe malfunction, something like that. But we felt like really it was more about the shirt than it is how it's supported.
Well, it sounds like you have leeway to make decisions.
These are the conversations I have.
Well, I think James' concern was that you don't box yourself in, and it sounds like you've got language in there somewhere that you can use better judgment in some of these issues.
Yeah, there is language that describes other aspects of the dress code, and really, as with almost everything that's in the handbook, there is a blanket statement in its conclusion that just basically says, if we feel it's inappropriate, then we'll do something about it. And the handbook has all of these things that are a foundation that we can work from, but really, not everything has to be in the handbook. That we always have those statements that said, if we deem necessary, if we deem appropriate, then we can move from there.
Sounds good. Anyone else? All right, with that, I will accept a motion to accept the Carver High School handbook changes, revisions.
Would like to make a motion to accept the Carver High School handbook revisions for the 2013-2014 year.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just upon that same contingency with the lunch.
On the lunch? Absolutely. Yep. So accepting these along with any further changes that will be made as we base a decision on meal choices and costs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Pat and Kat.
If I need to find anything, I'll come to you.
So entertaining.
He's going to get the Kevin Sear Award.
Gotta follow that act, right?
Yeah. You can leave if you want to. You don't have to stay. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I think it's in your, or either they brought it.
Just those handouts that we had, yeah. The numbers.
Yeah. Just these.
Sorry for that delay. Sorry for that delay. We want to do is you've got these documents in your school committee packets. But what we did want to do is talk about our current school lunch situation, which we, along with many other school districts in both the local area, the state, and the country, have been really affected by some really national legislation that has really impacted the way that we can deliver. Even though that some of it has been mitigated a little bit and opened us back up a little bit, there's quite a few of us that got hit pretty hard with this. And we'll bounce back, but there's a couple of main reasons for that, and we'll talk about those right now. And as you can see, in the first slide, if we start up at the top, we got about 4 years worth of information. And what we do is under revenue, we look at what our startup balance is. Okay, and as you see in the last few years, it's been in the $40,000 and $50,000 range. And if we go down, the next one is breakfast, and that's also been pretty consistent over time. But when we go down to a la carte, you're going to see that it's gone from $100,000 down to $87,000, and then down to $47,000, and that's just pure revenue. And that's because of the restrictions placed on us on what we can and can't sell, and mostly what you can't sell. So when we had quite a variety of things that we were able to sell at one point in time, a few years ago, we're now very restricted to few things that we can sell. That's a big problem. That impacted us greatly.
So Pat, that's intake, that's what you're saying, that's what's being brought in?
Revenue, right,
Yeah.
gross revenue. Mhm. So that was a huge drop in revenue. Although you can see what we call our lunchroom and then our prepayments as we started using the NutriKid system, and that's held pretty consistent over the years also. Our reimbursements actually ticked up a little bit. And that's because we were able to, by meeting all of these nutrition qualifications, we were subject to and did get approved for an additional 6 cents per meal of reimbursement through the federal reimbursement program. So that helped us out a little bit, and we've also had a few percentage increase in our free and reduced population, which also gives us a little bit more of a reimbursement. The other problem we had on the revenue side, as you can see in the bottom line, is the vending and what we can and particularly can't do out of the vending machines. And you can see that went from pretty consistently in the $9,000 range down to $8,000 or $9,000.
That's what the other represents, really, the vending product.
Right, yeah. So there's 2 huge parts of gross revenue.
Sell water now, that's about it.
Yeah, that we were impacted significantly by.
And clearly, mostly at the high school level with that vending. Is vending mostly at the high school level?
Middle school, high school.
Yeah,
middle high school.
That's where most of the vending is, right? Mm-hmm. And then when we get down to the expenses, you can see we're, as far as the expenses for the food, you can see it's gone up steadily a little bit, but the real significant portion of that is that the participation has also been reduced. So therefore, it's the cost of the food has gone up significantly.
And that is also due to the federal regulations. We have to do things with more fresh produce, and more whole grains, vegetables, and so forth. So, and I'll tell you, they're not as appealing as it is.
It looks pretty on the plate, but you get the...
Well, the product itself is also more expensive too, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
right. So, you know, we've got different dynamics working there. Our salaries have remained pretty consistent. There was a little blip in 2012, but what we had there was a couple of people that were out with extended absences, and we had to cover them with subs. But other than that, the salaries remained pretty consistent. Our other expenses, which deal with some supplies, repairs, and that type of thing, actually had a little blip in 2012 because we had some repairs and we had to buy some equipment. But other than that, it's remained pretty consistent in the $30,000, $40,000 range. And what you'll see is, while we've had some good balances in the past years, we're down to actually losing money this year. And not only losing money, but we're going to end up in a little bit of a deficit. And unfortunately, we along with some others, and I'll show you some of that too, just didn't have enough time to react to these new regulations, and or didn't realize what the impact of the new regulations would be until we started experiencing it. And I think that's the biggest part of it. And you can see our breakfast program has remained pretty consistent along the ways as far as meals sold. The lunches have gone down a little bit, and then especially in 2013 went down even further. Our enrollment has gone down a little bit too. So that all kind of lends itself to that. So the part of the FY 213 where we're indicating a deficit balance, it's actually runs contrary to the state statute. That you cannot have a negative balance in the food service account. So what we're going to be doing before the end of June, with some additional funds we had from some of our heating accounts, is that we're going to have to subsidize this a little bit. And we will pay a few bills and do a little bit of salary so that the balance does not come out negative. And we'll deal with that way.
And aren't you going to transfer the cost of the software?
Well, expenses. And our NutriKid software, what we did with that is a year ago, last year, we implemented the NutriKid software, and we did that with a 3-year financing arrangement, so it wouldn't impact us any too greatly in a single year. But that, and not knowing that the impact of these federal regulations, or not even knowing what they were going to be, so that was a cost that we knew it was there, but it hadn't been there over many years, and it was only going to be there for a few years. So we're going to have to supplement that and get us back at least into some positive ground slightly by the end of the year. One of the other things that I want to show too, what we've got on this slide is the pretty much in our South Shore collaborative area, we've looked at what are other school systems charging for lunches, some of the other information, and what their free and reduced, what their enrollment is, And are they going to look for an increase in the 2013 year? And as you'll see, our lunches currently at $2 and $2.25 are among the lowest that are out there. So we, previous to these new regulations, we were running along fine with, say, a $40,000 balance, and which actually you can have up to 3 months of operating expenses in there. So we could really have we could probably have 150,000 in there. So we were comfortable with having about a $40,000 balance. It gave us enough for startup. It didn't require us to increase the prices, because we were doing fine until the new regulations came along. So you can see that, again, we are one of the lowest in the area with what we charge right now. And this was just a survey that was done, and those that were up for telling it like it is and what they were actually doing, is you can see that there are quite a few districts out there that are also experiencing the same thing we are, and in fact, some to a far greater extent than we're experiencing. And the thing that I want to point out, particularly on this slide, is that it's not only those that run their own programs that are those that are also deal with contracted services. So it doesn't really make any difference, which part of that you're going with, whether you're running your own program or you're contracting it out to a food service vendor. They're all experiencing this, and this is just a small portion of those that actually provided some information. You'll see there's a couple that are making a little bit of money, but that's not much. That's not what we're used to. So another part of this, one that Kath is going to get into, is there's also some federal regulations about what districts charge. And what they're concerned about is, actually, if you're not charging enough, they feel that the free and reduced reimbursements are literally subsidizing the rest of your program. So we're going to have Kath talk about that a little bit, and it's almost like we have to, whether we wanted to or not, we have to increase lunch prices, because if we're not within those federal guidelines and we're not charging enough, that will impact our reimbursement. They'll actually reduce your reimbursement if you're not charging enough for your lunches, and that's whether you're making money or not. And I got to say, especially on the last slide, with a couple of those that were even charging less than us, there's no way they're not doing that without the school department subsidizing it. That's just not possible to charge $1.85 like one of the districts were doing, and being able to run a viable program and making money is just impossible. So there is, and there are some school departments that literally do that will say that we will absorb money out of the budget so that we don't have to increase lunch prices. And that is something that goes on out there. So with that, I'm going to put up another slide, and then Kath is going to speak a little bit.
This next slide it's actually a summary page, and it pertains to what the federal government calls equity in meal pricing. And it's based and related to the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act of 2010. And this tool, which is about a 4-page workbook, has been around since 2010. So we've done it every year, and on the previous pages to this summary page, you would be putting in lunch participation, a la carte money that is divided and makes meal equivalents. And it all summarizes together, adds previous year information, and comes to this, which we've actually been pretty much the same every year since 2010, that we should be charging at least $225. And as Pat said, we felt we were in a comfortable position. I certainly didn't anticipate such a drastic loss of revenue with the changes, because we had been building up over the years to kind of get ready for it. But I guess you're never ready. So that in mind, if we were to increase meals across the board by 25 cents, and that would include breakfast to the $1.50, I think along with the additional 6 cents reimbursement, we could anticipate revenue of about $45,000 over the year next year, which should put us in a really comfortable position. And that price increase, I feel, would stay with us for several years. We wouldn't want to have to come back every year asking for more money, because that's not the intention at all. We like to, I don't even like to increase the price of lunch, because we're just a small community. But the reality is that the revenue's not there anymore. There are a few other points, and I had written a summary type. We had 5 snow days this year. That affects lunch. That we don't make up at the end, because seniors are gone. The high school has all half days the last week, so we don't have that potential of income either. So these things all together have come to that recommendation that we increase the meal price.
Thank you for your presentation, and I will open up to the committee for discussion or questions. Barry?
Want to go to Gina first?
Gina, yes.
I just have a quick question. Could you refresh my memory on the 6-cent reimbursement? Where does that come from?
The 6-cent reimbursement is, it's new this year, and what we had to do as a school district is present and submit to the Department of Education 3 weeks' worth of menus that we broke down a nutritional analysis. We have all the backup documentation for inventory, production, participation, and this giant workbook that was at least 18 pages, that you needed a screen like this to look at it all at one time. That was submitted. We were selected and randomly to have a validation review, and they came in, the state came in, and reviewed everything. They looked at the books, they looked at everything, and they did validate our program, that we are following all the new guidelines, and that we would qualify for that extra 6 cents.
So what is our current reimbursement rate?
Right now, it's $2.59 for free.
That's with the extra 6 cents as well?
The 6 cents would be additional.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Work our way down.
All right, I just wondered, does the 25-cent increase account for anyone who may drop off and start bringing lunch from home? I know that you said some of the kids, you know, it's a little bit more of a difficult sell. Some of the kids don't like it.
That could happen.
I've heard one of my 2 asked if he could start bringing. So does this account for any drop off from people?
Typically what happens when, and we know this because of our associations and so forth, and meeting with other groups, that anytime that there is a price increase, it usually results in a little bit of a drop-off that's short-lived.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to about where it was.
Okay.
But the other things that we have to do here, and Kath has got a handle on, is our ways in which we have to deal with these new regulations. And what can we do to make things more desirable? What can we do to try to get that participation back up where it was. And that's a part that we have to deal with too. And that's a part that we're working hard on to do that. And some of the regulations, as we've said, they saw the problems in doing that, and some of them now have actually been relaxed a little bit, which can give us a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more freedom to get back and to do some of these lunches. And the thing about it is, when you look at this, it's just like any restaurant business. What do you want? Is you want repeat customers, but you got to give the customers what they want. And in our situation, the customers are our kids, our students. Even though we got to give them what they want, or they're not going to come back the next day and want to eat lunch again. And these, while they've been kind of inhibitive for us to do that, it's not impossible. And in working between, the professional group I'm in, particularly the professional group that Kath is in, and everybody's putting their heads together, people are coming up with ideas, and just how to do this. But again, you've still got you've got a much more constricted arena in which to work than you used to be. You used to have this much room, now we've got this much room, but they expanded a little bit. So we're going to be trying everything. So it's not just the price increase. We've got to get on our side, and we've got to get this back and try to do everything we can to increase that participation.
Barry?
Good question, thank you. I guess this would, even though we do get reimbursed somewhat, Liz, this is one of those unfunded mandates, I would say.
Unfunded mandate.
Thank you.
Once again.
And one thing I'd like to say too is, it's another, like I asked the legislature for, time. Give us time to implement these things. And the vendors that all schools use did not have time to catch up with appealing foods that met the nutritional requirements. So they're slowly getting up to speed. But this came out of nowhere and was implemented. And that's why we have this sudden setback, because the things that students want to buy, like whole wheat pizza crust, they'll eat pizza, doesn't matter if it's whole wheat or not, So, but those things weren't available immediately. And so pizza was off the list for a while. So you have to, I think we will see if we increase the lunch price slightly. And we did do that 5 years ago, and we did not lose participation, just a tiny setback. It was a quarter at that time as well. So I think we will rebound, and also with more products coming that meet the requirements that are more appealing to kids.
Did you mention that the regulations came down in 2010?
The Healthy Hunger-Free Act, Kids Act, came out in 2010.
So that's when we talk about regulations, that's when we're dealing with from 2010?
That is when they started to come up with the newer guidelines.
Sure.
And then a year ago, the brand-new regulations.
Okay, I mean, I'm thinking 3 years down the road, we probably had some time to adjust, but there are some newer things from that point.
It's been very difficult, because 1 week you think you've got it going, and then there's this news flash that comes from the department that says,
So
well, now
you're
we're
really
gonna do this.
trying to adjust from within the last year or so?
Yes.
Okay.
But you get federal regulations, then you get state regulations. At the same
And in
time.
Massachusetts, you have regulations.
Yeah. And,
yes.
part of this whole thing too is this, you've got this, national dialogue about childhood obesity and so forth. And I say this too, and I think a lot of times with the legislation and even others in Washington are trying to look at it and say that they're trying to solve the childhood obesity problem through school lunch.
The wrong way.
Well, it didn't happen through school
That's
lunch.
right.
It's not going to get solved through school lunch. So, and that's a big driving force, and the legislators and so forth that vote these things, they don't have to implement them, and they don't have to live them either. We do, though.
Well, they have great intent, but they don't really set it up the right way to do what they want to do. They actually drive it the other way, because now you got a bunch of kids who come to school and not eating lunch and go home hungry and end up eating something that they shouldn't be eating.
Right, yeah.
It really works it the other way.
So, but, at the same time, we're all under these guidelines. And I said, it's not only local, it's not only state, it's national. And it's been in the national news many, many times. But we are finding ways to deal with it, and But unfortunately, part of that, and not only for that reason, but part of it has to be that I think we do have to recommend an increase, in our prices, so we can not only keep up with this, so we can, in the government regulations that say we should be charging a certain amount, but they're going to reduce our reimbursement. So it's just kind of counterintuitive there.
I mean, it's always choice, but in this particular case, if we don't go ahead and charge what they consider the going rate, then it will actually cost us more money. We will lose money.
Right.
So
We'll lose more.
we'll lose more. And I think the revenue piece will solve 99%, and then participation, if we can get that back up, then we'll get the rest of it. So I really recommend that we go to the 225. It's been 5 years since the last time we did this, and not many things we buy cost the same thing they did 5 years ago. So, it's, although we prefer not to do it, this one will actually cost us more money if we don't go ahead, so.
Thank you, Liz. James, did you have some comments?
Yeah, actually, I had a question. You said from my understanding, there's sort of like an A list of products that you can buy from. Are you saying that they've expanded that list some to allow more options to choose from, or?
The list is, grows every day. There's a calculator you can use, put in the calories, the saturated fats, sodium, but it's not product that's readily available to us. And frankly, the kids don't like eating cardboard squares.
Right.
Chips.
With low-fat cheese on top or something like that. And
So we're very limited on what we have available. Even the ice cream, all that's available is a fudgicle that's really not even ice cream. That's on the list. So all those restrictions, in the beginning it was like, well, maybe we should just not even bother. So we did close what we had, in the high school we had a snack line, and we did sell like some, we sold to-go salads at that station as well. I couldn't justify having a person there for 3 hours and not having income to pay her to be there. So we brought a few limited products in, and they're in the lunch line. So, and it's hard, and I know it's particularly hard for the high school kids to come through. And we're not purposely not providing these things that they want.
Well, and I think this goes back to Barry's point, where this is another mandate where you're sort of held over the fire, and if, you're not going to get your reimbursement if you don't meet our requirements. And honestly, I think the solution is another example where parents have to start talking to their legislature and making a difference in this, because it's unreasonable, I think, the way they put this forth. It's great intent, but they've definitely put this forth in the wrong way, and it's stifling a lot of towns in that. And, I mean, that's a clear example of it. I think really the only we can add on, but I don't think you're going to start losing people because of a 25-cent increase in any way. I think it's got to do with, as you said, the food and the quality that they're allowing you to put out. And I think until that's going to change, I don't know what kind of difference we're going to see with that. I think it's really up to people to start stepping up and start talking to their legislatures and start talking to people about where this is supposed to go and what the true intent of this really is.
Thank you, James. Anybody else before I ask my questions? Just a couple things. Clearly, we're dealing with our revolving account, so you've got some different restrictions as we would our budget, and clearly we just went through a time where we see we have a gap in our budget, and from what I see, the last 2 years we've been losing money with this program. This year we're losing $48,000, so we're going to bring in $45,000 with our increase. We're still kind of tight. And so my concern is, obviously, I think you've talked about it a little bit, is just that we got to look at things a little bit differently now. I think it's important with a program like this. We've got to get creative in whether our vendors need to be changed, what we need to do. We need to get products that kids are going to eat, as well as meeting the guidelines, as well as maybe getting creative with the staffing patterns, things like that, finding areas that we can do best with, because we are so challenged on the other side to making sure we're not leaving any teachers and losing any positions that way. $48,000 could be a teaching position, and so it's very important that we're tight in all our other areas so that we're able to meet the needs of the educational piece. So I think obviously when we're dealing with a price increase, we're dealing with a couple issues. And I think federally, we've got to increase a little bit just to keep up with those numbers, and that's important. And to the point that's been made, I think, sure, nobody likes a cost increase, but in our case, we've been fairly reasonable, and I think a little bit, but to your point too, is we don't want to come back every year and have to increase this. And I think this bump, we need to monitor that. So I would encourage if we could maybe on a quarterly basis get some reports on the food service, just to kind of monitor and keep tabs as we move forward on this, to make sure that things are going well, and we're able to follow that and making sure we're on track with that. And I would be in support of increasing that to hopefully give us the boost it needs, and hopefully head us in the right direction for that. So if we, any other discussion, we can have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the requested increase for the lunches for the 2013-2014 to begin. Is that when I'm going to begin?
Yes.
School year.
Sounds good.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. And please make it noted in the following handbooks to be adjusted to the new price.
Thank you very much.
Maybe talk to the culinary
you.
department up at the high school.
This is true, yes.
Okay, so next on the agenda is, we put this on here in case we should hear something. But as I said before, we haven't heard anything yet from MSBA, and all of you will be the first to know as soon as we hear something.
It sounded like Mr. Ward knew something we didn't. Was there something going on there?
I think he's just passionate about this, and he, so sooner or later, and we won't have an official meeting until August, but that won't stop me from notifying you if we hear from, and then we probably have to call a meeting, so I will definitely let you know. Patrick's up next, but it'd be okay, I'll go to the grant while he's doing that.
Yes.
So a very late notification that there would be a 5-year grant program made available called Massachusetts Tiered Systems of Support. We have to rename everything in Massachusetts. The rest of the country, it's called Response to Intervention. But here it's called Massachusetts Tiered Systems of Support. And this grant will give a single district over $100,000 over a 5-year period to develop models of response to intervention, MTSS, the PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports, professional learning communities, and professional development for all of these things. And we're starting our 9th year of response to intervention. We have this center. We're already the South Shore Cape Resource Center. And so Meredith did a great job of getting all the structure of the grant all put together, and then I did my institutional knowledge piece and put all of the information I know from the past 8 years. And Dave drove the grant up there on Monday, and we were notified on Friday that we're the finalists, which I talked to the woman today, and apparently that means unless we say something bad on Wednesday, it's ours. So we're taking a big team up there, the people who have been in charge of our PBIS, teachers, principals, and hopefully with this money will come to us and we will be able to invest a lot more in this and continue to be a model for the South Shore. So it looks pretty much that it's coming to us, so hopefully we won't say anything wrong on Wednesday.
Well, our thanks to all those that helped put that together.
And Liz, thank you really, because professional development is the key to all of it really being successful. You can set up whatever you want. If you don't train your staff properly in it, it's not going to matter. So I like that that's a very big part of what you focus on, and it's a true benefit to what goes on around here, very much so.
And I do have to say the teachers are passionate about this opportunities too, so it just enables us to give them more of what they want.
Yeah, exactly.
So Patrick, we just skipped over you for a minute.
Oh, that's okay. That's good. I don't have much to say. It's actually, there really hasn't been any real facility issues since the last meeting.
Yeah.
Just want to talk about the sign up at the middle high school. It's almost ready to go right now. They dug the trench, they've got everything hooked up, so it's just a matter of NSTAR getting there and putting a meter on it. And hopefully that's going to be within the next, I think, a few days. You hear anything, Scott?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah, I heard that it was gonna happen last week. So. No, last week. I heard that it was gonna happen last week, so.
Okay.
So.
Something happened this weekend.
So, but that's what we're waiting for anyway, and that's...
Anytime now. So.
It's anytime now, correct. And then once the meter gets in, everything will go very quickly, okay? The other thing is we're just gearing up for a very hectic summer maintenance program like we always do, but we've also got some significant capital projects coming up too, which are very important ones. We're doing security upgrades at both of the schools, and that's already established. We've got the capital approval, $100,000 approval to do that, and we're getting ready to do that. Dave's making arrangements to have the vendor come in. We're having, actually, the building that we're in right now, the central office building, we're going to have it, a nice new paint on the outside. So that's another summer project, that this building is going to be painted, and some of the trim boards that are getting a little rough looking going to be replaced. We've got an engineering survey that's going to be done up at the middle high school. What that's going to do is it's going to give us anywhere from a 5 to 20-year plan on some of the items up there, whether it be roofs or systems or windows. And we'll have a comprehensive study about the middle high school facility. We've got 6 vehicles coming, which we're going to be putting out to bid shortly, and then we've got the technology upgrades. So we've got quite a bit of stuff to do this summer. We're getting started on it. That's it.
Thanks, Matt. Each year you have to appoint me to the, well, you don't have to, but I'm requesting that you appoint me to the Board of Directors of Reed's, which I serve on their budget and personnel committee and negotiations. So
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Superintendent Ms. Sorrell to the Reed's board.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion?
Does that have to be read verbatim there, as on the list?
You don't have to.
Doesn't matter, okay.
I don't know. So,
All right. Seeing that, no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous.
so all of our bargaining units are on the same timetable except for the custodians, and then the bus drivers also chose to become a bargaining unit rather than be a working group. So when we settled with the teachers over their cost of living increase, we agreed that particularly the custodians, if they wanted to open up, we would open theirs up again to look at cost of living, and we did that already. But the bus drivers got slightly off kilter because of the process they went through to form a new working group, and their contract read a 1% increase. But we agreed that we would give them, if they came back to us, and we did, we give them 1.5. And so it's just to amend their bus drivers collective bargaining agreement to include for 2013-14 a 1.5% cost of living increase, which matches our other working groups.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment as written.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, open up for discussion. All right, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you. Then the school committee has appointed rights for 2 members of the recreation committee. And luckily, we have 2 people who are willing to do it, Kimberly Clark and Mary Ross. You guys can
We have both those letters in our packets.
Thank you.
And for those of us who were at
town meeting there, we clearly saw it was well represented, and I believe she is now chair. Ms. Kimberly Clark there.
Yes.
So, with that, I will accept a motion to reappoint these two.
I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Kimberly Clark and Mary Ross to the Recreation Committee.
Second that.
Motion and second, any discussion? I guess my only discussion point would be, I'd love to get more on the agenda soon to hear back from them. It sounds like a lot's going on, maybe beginning our fall, we can hear what's been going on and hear from them. It sounds like they've been pretty active.
Well, I think especially considering they were talking about the openness of the funds from the CPCL.
So, if we can do that, that would be great. All right, seeing no more further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. Reports from the school committee. We'll leave it up to you to address our community. Any reports this evening?
We'll be quick, even though it's late, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. I just will tell you what, it has been a busy month, and I think we're going to be away for a month or two, so just want to thank everyone that I'm going to mention and celebrate the things that we do great. This was not for my son, I attended the convocation at the high school for the class of 2013, graduates next year. But I'm always so impressed with the work Mr. Neef does at the high school, the whole staff, and the students and the families and all the work they do. So I mean, it's just inspiring to sit there, especially when you're objective, you don't have a relative there. I mean, imagine next year, it would be a wreck, but it's a fantastic town, and the kids are always achieving so many things. So I encourage everybody, citizens from all over the town, to come to these types of things. We have a great auditorium, plenty of room. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. That was fantastic. And that's, I watched some of the video from last month's school committee, and I say fantastic a lot. So I'm going to try and change that. So Mrs. Perkins, help me with some vocabulary. So convocation, number one. Now, I don't know if you're going to speak to this, but you and I went to Beacon Hill with Superintendent Soro, and we met with our representative, Susan Williams-Gifford, and she was very receptive to the suggestions we made. So again, we are doing our part to represent the town, but as you said, James, I mean, the citizens, you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck when you reach out to your state reps, your state senators, whether it's in person, by phone, email, etc. So I encourage you to do that, statewide or nationally. And Senator Pacheco was not available. He had an emergency with, his constituents. He wanted to help keep Morton Hospital open, something like that. So quickly, I know it's late. The Memorial Day Parade, Mr. Tunis, great band we have. They served us proudly and sounded great. And then, of course, the graduation. I love the venue. So if you're going to ask me, I think the gymnasium was fantastic. A little cooler next year. But this room's kind of hot tonight, so I don't know what you can do about that next month. And I think that's everything on my list. But I do like to just share that every month because there is so much going on. And sometimes people that don't have kids don't know all the fantastic things. Well, there we go again. All the wonderful things that this school system does. So,
Thank you, Mr. Shusky.
Terrific, thank you. All right.
Any other notes from our committee tonight?
I'd just briefly like to wish everybody to have a nice, safe, happy summer. Enjoy the weather, and don't forget that beautiful public library that we have open.
Absolutely, education does not stop in the summer. And I would just add to what Barry shared about graduation, what a great event that was. And it was great that the parents and the families had an opportunity to kind of extend the invitation to graduation where many wouldn't be able to attend, and have that gym, and maybe next year we'll work on some cooler air and go from there. But a great event all around, and our congratulations to this year's graduates and entering the next phase of their life. So we want to commend them, and as mentioned as well, to our teachers for a great year and great work. And enjoy your summer, and we'll look forward to seeing you back in the fall. Is there any announcements? Yes?
Can I say what?
Please do.
So while you were talking about thank yous and thank you teachers, I just wanted to thank the Carver Elementary PTO. So we have a board of 5 women that have worked very hard for the last 3 years. Marie Blotner, Tracy Condon, Doreen Allen England, Thea Dickinson Rolls, and Jamie Donnelly. And I just received an update this weekend. Their final fundraiser for this team was the Carver Coyote Family Fun Run. So it was not a huge turnout, but I have to say that just the efforts and the volunteers and the folks that came out, I think that was a great first family fun run. And I'm going to be working with the next PTO officers coming in. But what I wanted to say is the update that I received from the PTO is that they have raised nearly $40,000 this school year. The previous year, it was $32,000. And the previous year, another $32,000. So kudos to the PTO because they set a goal, they really raised the bar, they have done a tremendous job to support the Carver Elementary School. We have been so fortunate to have this team. The enrichment for each grade level has been wonderful. It's money that's available for the grade level teams to make a decision about field trip and enrichment for each grade level, as well as supplies for each grade level, including Allied Arts has funds that they can use, special education, the therapists, the counselors, recess equipment. Every year we're able to update our outdoor recess equipment and technology equipment that they have helped to support, major purchases such as, fully equipped smart boards. So it's just tremendous the job they have done. I just wanted to publicly thank them for all of their hard work. We will certainly miss them. And I will be meeting with the new PTO officers this Friday. There are it's a team of 8 parents that will be working together. And I'll just briefly mention their names. Stephanie Clardy, Tiffany Cornup, Jen Profanel, Kristen Moore, Jen Sandegate, Julie Stone, Heather Sepulveda, and Jessica Walsh. So we will miss our PTO, but we have a new board coming in, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to our parents for supporting education in this community and the great work that they've done. Clearly raising tremendous amount of dollars that help support the work that's going on. So with that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, everyone.
And you can come and wish Mr. Barakat goodbye on Friday. Yeah.